Srimad Bhagavatam on the instructions of Narad Muni to Yudhishthira Maharaj on Varnasrama. So, chapter 11, 7th canto, the perfect society for social classes. This chapter describes the general principles by following which a human being, and specifically one who is interested in advancing in spiritual life, can become perfect. By hearing about the characteristics of Prahlad Maharaj, Maharaj Yudhishthira became extremely pleased. Now he inquired from Narad Muni about the actual religion of a human being and about special characteristics of Varnasrama, which marks the highest status of humans as civilizations. When Maharaj Yudhishthira asked Narad Muni about these matters, Narad Muni stopped giving his own statements and quoted statements from Lord Narayana, for he is the supreme authority for giving religious codes. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat manitam. Every human being is expected to acquire 30 qualities, such as truthfulness, mercy, and austerity. The process for following the principles of religion, known as Sanatana Dharma, the eternal religious system. So it's important to note here that Varnasrama and Sanatana Dharma are synonymous. That means you can follow Varnasrama Dharma without its eternal aspect. That's possible. Just like you can cook lunch not for Krishna. It's possible, but it's not what it's meant for. Does that make sense? So Varnasrama means it's meant to be engaged in the Lord's service. That's its point. So Sanatana Dharma, Varnasrama Dharma, and Dharma, or religion, they're all one thing. It's just different, you're bringing out different aspects of it. Right? Varnasrama means you're bringing out the structure. Dharma, you're bringing out the nature of things, that there's universal laws that the individual is applying to themselves. That's important to note, right? Because in the modern context, then the endeavor will always to be that, no, there's theory and then there's the reality. But the Vedic system is, yes, there is reality, and that's universal law, universal principles, that you as an individual within the universe have to apply to yourself. Does that make sense? Just like, let's say, if you're in a group, there's laws that apply to the group. You have to apply those laws to yourself. Right? Just like, let's say you have a team playing, soccer or something. They're on the field. There's rules that apply to the whole team. And the individual within that team applies those rules to himself in the particular time, place, and circumstance he's in at the moment. But he can't apply something outside of those universal laws. Does that make sense? Because if he does, he's not part of the team. So here, we're part of this universe. And so to function within these universes, we have to follow these. So we have to understand as there's universal laws, then according to our own position, we're applying certain laws to ourselves in certain situations. But there's no such thing as a situation where a law doesn't apply. Right? Is there a situation where there's no gravity, or you don't need to breathe air, or you don't need water, you don't need to sleep? Right? Does that make sense? Eating, sleeping, mating, defending is going on. Right? So, like that. All the species of life, you can define them by eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Every last one. In fact, if you ever get a book on animals, you ever notice, what does it describe? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. It doesn't describe anything else. So that goes on. This is the universal laws. Now, dog eats in one way, sleeps in one way, giraffe eats in another way, sleeps in another way. Right? Most animals lay down, horses stand up. Everybody has how they fit. Does that make sense? So it's very important to note that it's universal laws that we, according to our proper understanding and knowledge, by training, then apply it into our life. That's what's going on in Varnasrama. So the point is it's such a scientific system that it's how you fit into the universe, not just how I fit into my local neighborhood and my friends. Right? Because you always have to remember, whenever someone says, we think like this, who's the we? It means themselves specifically, and one or two other associates that kind of agree with them. But if you get them aside, they'll have something different. Right? You understand? You always have to understand what this we means. Oh no, but everybody. That's, another saying. It can be as little as one person or two or three. That's all it takes. All it takes is one person. If one person agrees with me, that's everybody. That's we. You understand? This is how the false ego works. We're not dealing with universal realities here. We're dealing with modern political perspective. That's all we're dealing with. Whenever we say we, that's political, because you'll notice here, as it mentioned, Narad Muni stopped giving his own statements and was quoting from Narayana. That's the difference between politics and reality. Right? You understand? But politics will be called truth because that's what I believe. I believe it, it's true. My perspective, that's truth. That's fact. And anything else, that's against. And if people aren't willing to allow me to question and inquire what I think is important, then they're obstructing knowledge, obstructing truth, obstructing justice. We understand what we're dealing with here? We're dealing with an immense amount of false ego. But because everybody thinks like this, and in this case everybody does mean everybody, right? Because that's what Shastra says. That if one is under the modes, one thinks like that. Maybe it's more heavy because of passion and ignorance, maybe it's more light. But the point is one functions under the modes. So therefore, one has to fit into the universal principles. We're not talking about principles that one or two people, because let's say we have three friends, right? Now, the three friends are all sitting together, they're all talking nicely. What are they doing? They're criticizing a fourth person, right? That keeps them all together. Now, let's say one of those three goes to the bathroom. What do the other two do? Criticize the person who went to the bathroom. Now, when the guy comes back from the bathroom, the other guy thinks that's a good idea, I'm going to the bathroom. Now, the guy that was in the bathroom was being criticized with the one that didn't go to the bathroom. Now they're criticizing the other person who now went to the bathroom. Right? And then now then that last person who hasn't gone to the bathroom, he'll think, oh, anybody want a drink in that? So he goes to the kitchen to get something to drink. Now the two persons left criticize him. You understand? So we're not talking about community here. We're really not. All it is what we're talking about is a commonality in which individuals can cooperate together for basic common sense gratification. Does that make sense? Like people like getting somewhere quickly. So therefore, if you're there on time, you have the trains, you don't burn the trains down in a strike or some kind of revolution, then the train's there. Right? And then you can go quickly to wherever you're going. But why is that happening? Because you're being taxed. Okay? So everybody works together because there's a common ground. We like to get places quickly. Right? But there's not a higher purpose than that. It's not that, does the guy driving the train really care about you? Anybody else in the system cares about you? The guy giving your ticket, oh, so nice you could come today. Yes, we're so happy. No. You understand? Does anybody? No. Because it's common ground. Everybody can get benefit from riding on the train because everybody wants to get someplace quickly. You understand? This is pranamoy. This is the community. The community is, what is the common sense gratification that basically we all agree on? And then, that's called your community. Right? And then it goes down from there. Within that, then you have your different groups and the different... Does that make sense? So, is any of this following universal law? No. Is it defined by universal law? No. It's simply defined by what at present is popular. That's all. What is popular? Does that make sense? So that's very important to note that the universal principles, the universal laws are what is applied by an individual into their life, not the other way around. We don't try to adjust the universe for us. No, we apply the universal principles on ourselves. But The point of the universe is it's such that it accommodates every individual. So there is individual application of these universal laws. That's what makes it so perfect. It's universal, it fits together. At the same time, it's perfectly individual. You'll only get this in the Vedic system. You'll only get this in following Varnasrama, or Sanatana Dharma. You won't get this in any other system. You can't. It's impossible. Right? So, okay. The Varnasrama system delineates the divisions of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. It also sets forth a system of samskaras. So samskara means, because when you're dealing with something, any activity has two effects, internal and external, right? External means something gets done. You can see it. Internal means it creates an impression. That impression then is the longer lasting. The other one is short-termed, right? You do something and it's there, okay? Just like, let's say, you cook lunch, okay? There's an effect, you can see it. But now everybody sits down, takes lunch and all that, and everybody's very happy with that. The lunch is gone, but now that samskar, sitting together with the devotees, having a nice meal, the nice interactions, that samskar will last a long time. You understand? That's the importance of samskars. So in the modern, it's just about getting something done. That's all. You get something done, I can see it, then you're practical, then something real has happened. But what they don't understand is, what about the samskars? Right? People go to work, right? They're getting their work done, they're sitting in their cubicle. Do they like their work? Do they like the people around them? Do they like their boss? Do they like the system? Good chance no. That's the samskara. That's what lasts. So, you have a lot of people that are qualified and that are doing their work and getting the results. And you can see it's going on. It's organized nicely. But what's the samskar? Everybody hates it. Right? Right? You have a thing here called the rat race. In America, you're in the rat race. Right? All the rats are running around, they have little lines, they all go in like that, So you go, everybody goes to work, then they eat that, and then they come back. You have a term here that you use? Or?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it?
It's oravanpyörä. It's not a rat race, but it's a squirrel.
Squirrel.
Yeah.
On the little things. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Because everybody has. Okay? We understand the squirrel on the little thing running around. Okay. So that's what you have, and that's the samskar, and that's how everybody feels about it. So now, how efficient is that system? You have bad samskars that's efficiently running. How sustainable is that? So the Vedic system is you're supposed to create samskars that are purifying, uplifting, bring you to the mode of goodness. So that you see things with knowledge, you see things from the position of duty. Then it's something you have to do. Right? So that works very nicely. Does that make sense? That will always be. So we see it's just the basis of the system is so different. So samskars, many times samskars are just, oh, what's the big deal? Oh, it's just ritual. Yes, that's the external part. What about the internal? That's what's not seen. In modern society, people are not trained in the internal. They don't think that the internal is important. And because of that, then it's a superficial society. Right? Does this make sense? Yeah. The Garbhadan Samskar, the ceremony for begetting a child, must be observed by the higher section of people, namely the Dvijas. One who follows the Garbhadan Samskar system is actually twice born. But those who do not, who deviate from the principles of Varnasrama, are called Dvija Bandhus. That's why it's said in Kali Yuga everyone's born a Shudra, because generally no one's following these samskars. They follow, and you're born a Dvija. If you're not, you're not. It's simple. The principal occupations for a Brahmana are worshipping the deity, teaching others how to worship the deity, studying the Vedic literatures, teaching the Vedic literatures, accepting charity from others, and again giving charity to others. Brahmana should make his livelihood from these 6 occupational duties. The duty of a Kshatriya is to give protection to the citizens and levy taxes upon them, but he is forbidden to tax the Brahmins. Yeah. The members of the Krishna conscious movement should therefore be exempt from government taxation. Kshatriyas may tax everyone but the Brahmins. Vaishyas should cultivate the land, produce food grains, and protect the cows, whereas the Shudras, who by quality never become Brahmins, Kshatriyas or Vaishyas, should serve the three higher classes and be satisfied. Right? One may say, oh, well, why do they have to serve? How many people you know don't have a job? That they own the business? That they're actually leading positions, you know, in the government, not just an office job, or in the military, right? Or, you know, teach in a school. But nowadays, school, much of the time, then, you know, it's not, you're not free to do as you like. Who has their own independent educational institution, right? So, like this, how many doctors, lawyers, teachers, actual administrators, military, or people who run businesses do you know? And how many of the rest of them have a job? Okay? So if you have a job, that's the position of, that's the occupation of a Shudra. So for a society that basically makes everyone into Shudras, right? Let's say you have doctors, they're supposed to be Brahmins, they're independent. But there's a hospital. Who runs the hospital? Doctors? Maybe managing it. Who sits on the top and makes the decisions? Businessmen. You know, you have a law firm, big law firm. Okay, lawyers are there, but it's all based on business. And some of them are so big that you have businessmen running it, and they hire lawyers. Right? Does that make sense? And schools, also, you have boards of people. There's some of those people sitting on those boards may never have taught in their life. Right? They have their theories, they have their ideas, they've studied things, they have, you know, they have their opinions. So the teacher just has to do what they say. So here we've taken everybody and just made them into Shudras. Right? Or you have these big, huge businesses, corporations, they take over smaller businesses, and then you just have to do what they say. So you see, is Kali Yuga is designed, the modern society is designed to make everyone Shudras. And then we sit around and complain about Shudras. This is the fun. Oh, how can you call us that? Yeah, well, easy. We just explained. So the point is that's what it says. One should serve and be satisfied. Because what's the problem in being a Shudra? Right? If you know how to run a business or, you know, military, then great. If not, then you just assist those who do those things. Because the point is they go back to Godhead. That's the whole point. So the feet of the Lord then are great. Everyone likes the Lord's feet. That's the Shudras. So it's not a problem. Other means of livelihood are also prescribed for the Brahmanas, and these are four: Shalina, Yavara, Shila, and Unchana. Each of these occupational duties is successively better. One who is in lower grade of social life cannot accept the profession of a higher class unless necessary. In times of emergency, all the classes but the Kshatriyas may accept professional duties of others. The means of livelihood known as Rita, Silochana, Amrita, Ayachita, Mrita, Nyancha, Pramrita, Karshana, and Satyanrita, Vanijya, may be accepted by everyone but the Kshatriyas. For a Brahmin or a Kshatriya, engaging in the service of the Vaishyas or Shudras is considered the profession of dogs. Okay, so generally they won't move down. Brahmin Kshatriyas won't take up the activity of a Shudra if need be. Vaishyas can temporarily if they need, just like I know one, a really, you know, born business family person. He was in one city, had his own businesses, actually had a few businesses. But he wanted to transfer to another city because in that city the economy was more dynamic. The one city he was in was not really developing nicely. But to do that, then because he doesn't know the scene, he would go in and take a job, working for another businessman. Not just, you know, sitting in a, you know, little thing. He would be, you know, quite high up in the ranking, where he can actually see what's going on in the business. Then his idea is he'd do that for a year, And then after 1 year, once he's understood the scene in that city and how the economics works in that, he'd start his own business. You understand? So Vaishyas may temporarily take up the activity of Shudra if it works for them. Does that make sense? It's like that. But Brahmins and Kshatriyas are expected not to do that. Narad Muni also described that the symptoms of a Brahmana is controlled senses. The symptoms of a Kshatriya are power and fame. The symptom of Vaishya is service to the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. And the symptom of a Shudra is service to the 3 higher classes. The qualifications for a woman is to be very faithful and chaste wife. In this way, Narad Muni described the characteristics of higher and lower grades of people and recommended that one follow the principles of his caste or his hereditary occupation. One cannot suddenly give up a profession to which he is accustomed, and therefore it is recommended that one gradually be awakened. The symptoms of Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras are very important, and therefore one should be designated only by these symptoms, and not by birth. Designation by birth is strictly forbidden by Narad Muni and all great personalities. So, therefore, whatever the birth is, that's not how one's defined. It's by one's nature and what actually one does. That's how it's seen. So here then, it is also pointed that one doesn't give these things up immediately, because we'll see here is why these are described, because this is where most people will be situated. Later chapters it will be discussed about the Paramahamsa and that. Right? Because within the Varna ashram, then the one who is transcendental to it, that's the best. Right? So that's what one's trying to get to as a devotee. But that means the most important is, as we said, there's the external, the internal is the internal mentality. Is having that proper mentality of sannyas. That's what one's trying to get to. So that mentality where everything's for the Lord, that's what one's trying to affect. So Narad Muni therefore says that whatever one's conditioning, you apply that. And in applying that, that will gradually take you to the transcendental platform. Because the point is, since it's Krishna's universe, it's how you use the universe, not what you're doing in the universe. Right? What's the mentality? So it doesn't matter how you're situated by your nature. It's why you're doing it, your intent. That will be the most important, because that defines pure devotion. Right? You could be doing your job very nicely, but not be Krishna conscious. That's a waste of time. It gets the work done. But for the soul, it's a waste of time. So for the soul, it's about the consciousness. And that consciousness is connected to the Lord. That makes perfection. Right? Yes? So that's the introduction here. Text 1. Sukadeva Goswami continued. After hearing about the activities and character of Prahlad Maharaj, which are adored and discussed amongst great personalities like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, Yudhishthira Maharaj, the most respectful king among exalted personalities, again inquired from the great saint Narad Muni in a mood of great pleasure. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, "My Lord, I wish to hear from you about the principles of religion by which one can attain the ultimate goal of life, devotional service. I wish to hear about the general occupational duties of human society and the system of spiritual and social and spiritual advancement known as Varnasrama Dharma." Purport. Sanatana Dharma means devotional service. The Lord Sanatana refers to that which is eternal, which does not change but continues in all circumstances. Right? So here when we say Sanatana Dharma and Varnasrama Dharma, that indicates that we mean Varnasrama Dharma engaged in the Lord's service. We're not interested in it outside of that. Therefore, it's fruitless for devotees to say, when we mention something from Varnasrama, to say that, oh, well, that doesn't apply to us, we're devotees. Because the point is Varnasrama, not in devotional service, yes, does not apply to us. But at the same time, you could also stick it, is Varnasrama without devotional service doesn't apply to us also, because we're not qualified. You would have to have material qualification to practice Varnasrama without devotional service. Right? Does that make sense? Mlecha and Yavana is not exact qualification. So, therefore, Varnasrama, the only one we can follow is Sanatana Dharma, because that is what the soul can do. That's open to everybody. But Varnashram, it will be strictly according to your conditioning. So if your conditioning is not of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, then it doesn't fit. That makes sense? So it's useless to say that these things don't apply to us. Because if it doesn't, if you're not using Sanatana Dharma, what's your alternative? The modern military culture, bourgeois culture that's based around economics, that's simply for sense gratification. That's the alternative. It's not that there's some glorious other alternative. Right? No, that's it. Does that make sense? So when we say liberty, fraternity, equity, what are we talking about? Liberty means I'm freed from any authority that tells me what to do that I don't want to do. Right? Equity means that whatever is available, I can also get. Right? We should share. Not that I necessarily work for it, but if you have it, I should get some also. But it's not necessarily that from the other side is that I have and you, I should share with you. That's not necessarily part of the equation. And fraternity, we're all great friends, and that way that we all share each other and we don't tell each other what to do. How far can you get such a system? What can you do with that? You understand? So it's only meant for sense gratification. Each item is a good item. Equity, fraternity, liberty, they're all good qualities. But unless they're connected to transcendence, then they're not worthwhile. Right? Does that make sense? Okay, we have several times explained that the eternal occupational duty of the living entity is. Indeed, it is explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jivara Surupaya Krishna Nityadas. The real occupational duty of the living entity is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even if one prefers to deviate from this principle, he remains a servant because that is his eternal position. But one serves Maya, the illusory material energy. So you can either serve Krishna directly or not, or indirectly through Maya. The soul will serve. Right? The Krishna conscious movement, therefore, is an attempt to guide human society in serving the personality of Godhead instead of serving the material world, with no real profit. Our actual experience is that every man, animal, bird, beast, indeed every living entity, is engaged in rendering service. Even though one's body or one's superficial religion may change, every living entity is always engaged in the service of someone. Therefore, the mentality of service is called the eternal occupational duty. Now it's just a matter of how you want to use it. Right? So this eternal occupational duty can be organized through the institution of Varnashram, in which there are 4 Varnas, Brahma, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and 4 ashrams, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. Thus, Yudhishthira Maharaj inquired from Narad Muni about the principles of Sanatana Dharma for the benefit of human society. You see, the logic Prabhupada is showing here is that Sanatana Dharma means that which is eternal. So the eternal nature of the living entity is to serve. So now you can either serve Krishna or serve Maya. Right? So now, since we're talking about, so the highest principle is serving Krishna, therefore organizing living entities into a social system in which they can all serve Krishna, then that's the Varnashram system, Sanatana Dharma. You see the logic is there? So that's what Prabhupada's establishing. So it's not that it needs to be established again and again. So he's pointed out how Sanatana Dharma means engaging oneself in a cooperative system. Right? That's why we see that the Acharyas establish missions. Right? There's an organization, there's an institution. Why? Because it helps organize things and makes things run smoothly. Everyone can cooperate together. That's the idea behind an institution. It's not about the institution. It's about what the institution does. Okay? So this point then will draw on some of the discussions we've had in the previous years. See, is that you're going to have to, as we were discussing before, Shankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Vasudev, you have to understand who you are and what's your proper attitude. Right? Then you can understand what your goal is and what's the appropriate activity to get that goal. Right? But we're going to expand a little further. is now in that goal, you're going to have your primary goal and you're going to have secondary. Primary goal means the one that you're trying to obtain. The secondary goals are what helps attain that. Does that make sense? Like, let's say I want to buy a house, okay? So, what do I have to do to have a house? I have to have money. So what's going to get me money? Some kind of occupational duty. So, by having an occupational duty that gets me money, money is a result that I can see. Right? But it's a goal. But it's a goal in pursuance of that final goal of having a house. You understand? People don't make this distinction. Because of that, much of the finer points of the philosophy and its application get lost. Because we can't distinguish between what's primary and what's secondary. Very, very essential. So, and now here's the fun part. Now when we have Sankarshan and Prajumna in Sambandha, Sankarshan, now that's going to define the actual activity that I get. Right? I perform an activity, I perform the mechanics of that activity, right, with that knowledge. That will get me the external, viewable result. Right? Now, the Prajumna is the attitude that I have. That's what's going to get me the higher one. Right? Because if I don't have the right attitude, when I get money, I'll spend it on something else. I can't. So that means that the Prajumna aspect has to be by higher qualities. And that will get us the result. And we see in devotional service, then it's the attitude that makes it devotional service. It's your skill that gets you a result. Right? Let's say I know cooking. I have the skill. I can cook nicely. But it's my attitude that makes it devotion or not. You understand? So in the modern scenario, the focus is always on your skill, your knowledge and skill, and your practical application of that. But what's missed is that if you don't have the right attitude, you don't actually get anything of substance. So the goal has to be seen as two, because the relationship aspect has these two. Right? Process is the same. Whether I'm Krishna conscious or not, cooking is the same process. Right? But if I'm Krishna conscious with proper knowledge, I get a Krishna conscious result. And depending on my knowledge and practice, I have the skills, then I'll get a good result. Does that make sense? So that means that just takes it a step further, because this primary and secondary means you have to be able to see in the goals what is the main, what's secondary. Otherwise, then, when we apply this, we'll miss it. Like the Brahmin, he's worshipping the Lord, he's studying the scripture, doing the rituals and that. What's important? Is the knowledge and the ritual important, or is it pleasing Krishna is important? You understand? So we get so absorbed in the ritual, or so absorbed in the study and forget Krishna, we miss the point. But we're nicely situated. Well, you know, you have to admit they're a Brahmin. Same way one's doing administration, one's managing. And if one manages and all that, but one forgets what was managing for. You understand? So in other words, Varnashram is the system of secondary results. Because Varnashram is dealing in Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. These are the Purusharthas. But what's the highest Purushartha? Prema. That is the result for the soul. The other ones are results for the condition. Since we're using the body, we're functioning, we need that. We need that environment, but it has to be connected to the Lord. Then it becomes devotional service. So when Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha are connected with bhakti, then it becomes devotional service. Right? But if it's not, then it's just Varnashram. It's Asura Varnashram. Technically you have Daiva Varnashram, right? Then if it's not Daiva, it's Asuric. These are the two kinds of Varnashram. So we're not interested in the Asuric Varnashram, we're only interested in Daiva Varnashram. Does that make sense? Yeah. So this is Sanatan. So Daiva Varnashram and Sanatan Dharma are the same.
So even for Sweden, even this Asuric Varnasrama should not be option for them in the, or how should it?
It should not be. No, that's all that they have.
Yeah.
Because it's just like this. If I say someone's a professional, you know, let's say, you know, but within that, doctors, lawyers, teachers, like this, that kind of category. We accept that as one category. If we say we're working in administration and government, that's another category. We're doing business, is another. Or we're, you know, white collar worker, blue collar worker. You have that over here? White, blue collar. American thing. White collar means you're sitting in an office. Blue collar means you're out driving something, you know, or pushing a broom or doing something like that, right? Because they generally have those pullover overall kind of things that zip up and it's blue, like that. And the other guys wear a white collar at work, you know. Does that make sense? So the karmis make these divisions. Right? If you say, oh, what do you do? I have an office job. Well, they go, oh, we're not this body, you know, why do you give these death? No, they won't do that. So the karmi is defined by the same exact things that varnashram. You can't get around varnashram. It's the universal law. Right? Does that make sense? Right? So you are either, even you get down to a tribe, you're either the witch doctor, right? There's generally only one of those. Right? Then you have the chief, and, you know, one or two guys that like manage the tribe. Then you have all the warriors that, you know, go out and make economic development for the group. And then there's those who just do what they're told. You understand? So even on the simplest level, you still have varnashram. You can't get around. Now the difference is whether it's scientific or not. Right? What is the attitude? Why are we doing it? There you're doing it, most people do it just because you have to do it. You have to get a job, you have to make money, and so therefore I'm comfortable doing this kind of work or that kind of work. Right? And even then they don't necessarily end up with the work they want. Does that make sense? So what's being suggested here by this discussion is that we consciously know what we're doing, consciously know why we're doing it. Then we can do it well. Then we'll prosper. Right? Does that make sense? So that's what's trying to be brought across.
So when introducing Varnasrama to the external society, it means actually that we should first introduce the Krishna consciousness because they don't have the character for...
No. Because the point is they're already situated where they are. So what's missing? Maybe some little technical skill, but that will only give them a better technical result. What's really missing is Krishna consciousness. So the Sanatan part of it. Right? Because the first point is that the nature of the soul, what's the soul supposed to be doing? So that's the first thing that should be dealt with. When that's dealt with, then their occupation, it goes on. It's not that they have to change occupation. Right? You know, maybe if they're a butcher or something, they might consider getting a different job, you know, like that, you know, become a barber or something, you know, they're good with knives, like that. And I told the story, it was once we were, I think we were on the way to India, maybe then, I'm not sure what year it was, but it was for the festival, so the whole plane load of devotees are going there, I think, like that. And so then everybody was getting shaved before going, so you had, you know, one bathroom, 1 million brahmacharis, and there was this one devotee who was in there, he had a straight edge razor, and he would shave everybody in about 30 seconds perfectly. You know, not a hair on the head, not a cut, nothing. And so fast, he was just going. And so when he was shaving my head, he was so good, and I says, wow, you're so good. Did you used to be a barber before? And then without skipping a beat, he said, no, a butcher. Okay. Don't upset the barber here, right? Yeah. So you know, one or two situations you might need to change occupation, but generally speaking, wherever one's situated, it doesn't matter. They can continue like that. It works perfectly. Right? So what has to be added is Krishna consciousness. Then you can refine the system. It's just like this. Let's say the person, they learn about Krishna consciousness and learn that everything should be offered to Krishna. So do you need to teach them techniques of cooking, or do you have to teach them how to offer things to Krishna? You understand? Then offering to Krishna, naturally then they may want to increase the quality of their technique if they have that ability. Does that make sense? So the science, the secondary will follow the primary. But if you focus on the secondary, one, it's like pushing a rock uphill. It's not going to happen, right? Because no one's going to function outside of what their conditioning is. So if you're not approaching it from devotional service, you're not going to purify it. So it's going to stay at the same place it is. You're not really going to change it. Does that make sense? You know, it's just like, let's say, maybe you haven't seen here, but you've probably heard about in some places in the world, like the current goes off. You know, there's no electricity. What happens? Does everything just go on peacefully? People, you know, park their cars, walk home, or... No, there's riots. They lose billions of dollars. So that's the underlying actual character of the people. So it's only because there's a strong state to control it. You know what I'm saying? Or there's no petrol. Right? Shortage of petrol. You know, you have to stand and sit in a line to get petrol. Then if somebody, you know, feels I got an emergency, they cut in, they get shot. Literally. You know what I'm saying? So that's actually what you're dealing with. So therefore, why bother starting with Varnasrama there? You start with the character of the soul. That then there's something to work with. Right? Because if that's established, then naturally whatever needs to be refined within the technique will develop as one becomes purified. So that's why amongst the devotees, amongst those you're preaching to, the first is establishing Krishna consciousness and the standards of pure devotional service. If that's there, then you can introduce these other things, but it has to be understood that these are secondary. Right? If you're having a meeting on management, it has to be understood that pure devotional service is the primary, and this is simply a way of expressing it. Right? Those with the managerial ability, they are going to use management as their service to Krishna. And so that's how they're going to purify themselves and engage themselves. But it's not that the management itself has a position more important. That because of the management, that's why there's devotional service. No, management can assist devotional service. Does that make sense? And so that's what it is. Same with everything. One's cooking for the deities. It's a way to express your devotion. It's not that because you cook, now it's devotional service. It's because your attitude is devotional service. Right? Not that I'm a better cook, so I'm a better devotee. The neophyte tends to do that. I have more material skill, I'm a better devotee. Right? But it's not the... That's how you apply for the secondary aspect. Right? Because when you're dealing with time, place, and circumstance, circumstance technically means the person. Right? Because it means the environment around you, but depending upon the person, you fit into it or can apply that environment. Right? Just like if I take a cook and put him in the kitchen, then it works. I take someone who's not a cook and put him in the kitchen. It doesn't matter that it's a kitchen. So the most important element of patra, or circumstance, is the person. Then the person is going to have what is their nature, what is the maturity within that nature, and what is their qualification, right, for that situation. Does that make sense? Right? So the point is you have a nature to say that here again, someone's a cook, but then how mature are they in cooking? How much is it developed? That's the second aspect. So therefore, then you decide who does what, depending upon that. Right? The guy that doesn't know much, he shouldn't be the one saying what to do. The one who does know, they should be saying what to do. Or if he gets things like washing pots, cutting vegetables, and that, and other guys are cooking, hey, how come I don't get to cook? You know, we're all equal here. You know, no, it's not. So according to maturity. You know, or something simpler they cook, something more complicated, someone more. Does that make sense? Then there's the adhikar, as how do you fit into that? right? According to the situation and this and that. Like if you just came out of cleaning the bathroom, even though you're the best cook, you're still not qualified to go in the kitchen. You have to take a bath, right? Does that make sense? So you have to see all these things. That's time, place, and circumstance. Right? These are all. This is the Vedic perspective of time, place, and circumstance. Right? Just bringing that up because generally the modern culture loves to make it that they're the ones that are practical and that the Vedic is all theory. But that was the 6 aspects of time, place, and circumstance. Right? People generally only kind of do is what I felt like doing right now is what should be done. But they don't consider what their qualification. So, yeah. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. O best of the Brahmanas, you are directly the son of Prajapati, Lord Brahma. Because of your austerities, mystic yoga, and trance, you are considered the best of all of Lord Brahma's sons. Text 4. No one is superior to you in peaceful life and mercy, and no one knows better than you how to execute devotional service, or how to become the best of the Brahmanas. Therefore, you know all the principles of confidential religious life, and no one knows them better than you. Right? So here, as we're talking about, it's by having the nature oneself, knowing devotional service, knowing the nature of the Brahminical duties, therefore you know religious life. Then you can then establish the Varnasrama. Right? So that's why we take Narad Muni. Means Manosamhita, that will be Bhrigu. Right? Bhrigu speaking on what instructions he's heard from Brahma and from the Lord. Right? Narad Muni is giving the same knowledge. The difference is he's focusing on the primary aspect, like in here, it's the primary aspect of devotional service, with the secondary being shown connected. Because the technicalities of the connection has already been established by Manu. Yudhishthira Maharaj will know all that. But what he wants to know is these secondary aspects of Varnasrama, how to bring that to the primary of Sanatana Dharma. That will be the uniqueness what Narad Muni is going to add to the instructions that we see from Manu. Purport. Yudhishthira Maharaj knew that Narad Muni is the supreme spiritual master of human society, who can teach the path of spiritual liberation leading to the understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, it is for this purpose that Narad Muni compiled the Bhakti Sutra and gave directions in the Narada Pancharatra. To learn about religious principles and the perfection of life, one must take instruction from the disciplic succession of Narad Muni. Our Krishna consciousness movement is directly in the line of the Brahma Sampradaya. Narad Muni received instructions from Lord Brahma and in turn transmitted the instructions to Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva instructed his son Sukadeva Goswami, who spoke Srimad Bhagavatam. The Krishna conscious movement is based on Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Because Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken by Sukadeva Goswami and Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna, there's no difference between them. If we strictly follow the principle of disciplic succession, we are certainly on the right path of spiritual liberation or eternal engagement in devotional service. So this is your most important, as we said, the primary and secondary is understand the devotional service. If that is understood, then the secondary attributes or the technical points of Varnasrama will be able to be understood and applied. Otherwise, if you don't understand the devotional point, you won't understand the technical points. And we'll see as any problems that devotees have had with Varnasrama have all come because of not understanding the primary, right? Not having the adhikar to apply the secondary, and not understanding the primary, right? So not having the adhikar for the secondary, okay, that's understood. That happens, right? We're not necessarily born into the system or have an association. But through devotional service, then one can understand. Then one can move forward. So if one doesn't apply the spiritual principle onto it, then one will not understand the technical points. So basically speaking, Varnasrama being a subject matter that most aren't interested in or know or understand how it technically works is because of not seeing it in relationship to devotional service. Because if you check, devotees know devotional service. They don't know how to apply it in the practical, in the secondary. simply because there's not an understanding that they're two different things. That there's primary, that there's secondary. Does that make sense? When we understand that, then we see it works very smoothly. Because you always have to see everything in connection with the primary. What is it doing in relationship to Krishna consciousness? And since it's recommended by, here, Narad Muni, now we can't say, oh, you know, Varnasrama, we're devotees, it's not for us. Then why is it here we have two great devotees discussing the need of Varnasrama? And why did it come up? Because of the discussion of Prahlad Maharaj. Right? So we see all the great personalities, they follow it. Krishna follows it, Lord Chaitanya follows it, everybody follows it. Text 5. Yes?
You mentioned that qualification is important, but how to deal in the society with especially decision makers who believe, who not having qualification, believe that they can discuss any subject matter. What's the proper way to deal with such a situation?
It means if you have to be involved in it,
Yeah.
then I would say is you have to break it down. Is that means there's the difference between, how to say it? Okay, so now you're going to have, let's say you're going to make a decision, right? So there's going to be some purpose that you're trying to obtain, right? Now, as we mentioned before, the purpose has these two aspects. What's the ultimate purpose they're trying to obtain, and then what's the immediate goals they're trying to get that will lead one to that purpose. They have to be able to define those. Otherwise, it's just all in their head and it all sounds great, right? Second of all is that, okay, that being defined, what is the primary? The secondary, then what's the nature of all those, right? The primary would be your prajumna, right? Your secondary aspects, that would be sankarshan. What is the field? What are the relationship between all the things in the field? What does each aspect within the field do in connection with attaining the goal, right? Then you're going to have, okay, well, what's the process that you have to go through to take all these secondary aspects? Because you're going to get the primary through the secondary, right? The secondary. So what are all the steps that you're going to make to go through there? Like how, that you have to know what is the technicality of each aspect of the knowledge and what it does to be able to make this padati or make this path. Because otherwise you say, well, we'll do this, this, this. Well, why? It's because this has to be done before that. Right? You know, and just like, I don't know cooking, so yeah, you just put the pasta in the pot and you boil it. Right? Okay, but the point is when do you put the pasta in the pot? I just get a pot and stick pasta in it? No, you have to get the pot, put water in there, put it on the fire when it's hot and boil it, then put the pasta inside. Right? So unless you know, so they have their, so that's the knowing, that's sankarshan. Right? Then I can make the padati. Right? Then your fourth part is, well, what's the qualification of each individual to do that? And as we mentioned, the qualification means what is their nature? What is their maturity within that nature? And what is their specifics to that situation? Okay, maybe they're very qualified, let's say in cooking, but we're discussing now who's going to, you know, go to the airport and pick somebody up. What's the connection? Okay, I know great cooking, so why am I making comments on who's driving the car? I'm qualified as a cook, but I'm not qualified as a driver or how to pick people up at the airport.
But I'm superior to you.
Superior, what's superior? What makes superior? Superior for what? Just like, which is superior, a hammer or a screwdriver? If it's nails, it's a hammer. If it's screws, it's a screwdriver. If it's a tree, it's a chainsaw. So to just say I'm superior and generic, how does that work? There's no such thing.
I understand that, but if it is stated just because I'm here and you are there and you will do as I
It
said.
says, yes, I'll do as you say. But then the point is because it's a technique, and the point is a particular technique gets a particular result. And so if the wrong technique is used, no matter how superior you are, it will fail. That's all. So the point is Actual superior is like, just as an example. One day, this one guy, small guy, one of these, I don't know, 5'2", 5'1" kind of guys, was walking along down the road, and there was a whole bunch of people trying to move, I think a tree log or something, or some kind of thing. And it was very heavy, and they weren't doing a good job. And there was one guy there supervising, telling them what to do, but it wasn't working. So this guy came along, saw that, observed it for a while, then got down there with the guys, organized it, and got it moved. Right? Then when that guy got out of the, on the side of the road and got up to the guy who was, superior, then he told him, says, if you don't get down there and know what's going on, how can you say you're superior? How will you be successful? Right? That guy was Napoleon before he became. So that's the whole thing, is that if you don't know the field, just because you're in a position, that's the mistake, that I'm in charge so I know everything. But where did that happen? They have a specific degree in a specific area, and that's all. So outside of that, they don't know what they're talking about. And if you can't deal with the practical, then it's not real. Because the Vedic concept is there's no such thing as having theoretical knowledge. It has to be practically applied. Right? But this is the fun part, is the Vedic is practically applied, but it's given that, it's theory. And the modern is supposed to be practical, but most of the time it's theory. You know what I'm saying? You go to school, you do your 3 years, your 4 years, you get a piece of paper. You don't know how to do it, unless it was a practical area. But most of the time, you don't know what's going on. Does that make sense? So that's the difficulty, is it's not real. It's just, it's all for money making. It's supposed to be the guys that are educated and can be useful in the economic system. That's why businessmen are taking over the universities. Because the people the university produces isn't useful in the economic field. So therefore they're taking over and trying to get them to be the way they want them. Because otherwise it's just theory. Is that okay? So if you can break it down, of course you also have to balance it between, whether you want to maintain the position you're in, compared to their position on how you speak things and stuff. So that's also a position. Because someone in a superior position is to be respected. Because they're in that position, they have that authority, so that means that authority, that potency is coming from Krishna anyway. So it has to be respected. But it's just a matter of, if you have some influence on how to make it work better, then you try. And if not, then you let them enjoy the results of their so-called good plan. Just try to stay out of the way, so when it goes south, that you're not the one they blame. You just, I'm not qualified for that. It's just like, hey, try this guy. Yeah. Text 5. Sri Narada Muni said, after first offering my obeisances unto Lord Krishna, the protector of the religious principles of all living entities, let me explain the principles of the eternal religious system, of which I have heard from the mouth of Narayana. Purport. The word Aja refers to Krishna, who explains in Bhagavad Gita 4:6, Ajopi san avyayatma, I am ever existing, and thus I never take birth. There is no change in my existence. Right? So, why bring that point out? Because the principles of religion aren't changing. They're eternal. So the idea, it's Kali Yuga, we can't follow all these things, that's nonsense. Krishna's eternal, his laws are eternal. All it is Kali Yuga means people don't want to follow it. Right? Does that make sense? It's like a bunch of kids in the house. They decide they don't want to do what their parents say. Right? And so, because there's a bunch of them there, and they all agree, does that mean the laws have changed? Can they play, can they now play, soccer in the living room? Does that make sense? Just because they feel it, that doesn't change. So the point is the universal principles never change. And because of that, then that's why it's being pointed out. Krishna being Aja, that's why they don't change. Because everything being Krishna, it doesn't change. Right? It's just like this. Okay, let's go back to the time, let's go back to the biblical times, okay? We have Abraham is sitting there, his father's gone out, right? He's looking at all the different statues around the house, you know, the sun god statue, moon god, whatever it is that was popular at the time there in old Ur, right? And he thinks, no, there's only one God, right? So he takes a big stick, breaks all of them except for one, the biggest one, and sticks the stick in his hand, right? Okay? Then his father comes back, you know, who's a priest and that, and says, hey, what happened to all these guys? You know, who broke them? Says, I don't know, he broke them, he's got the stick. And I said, what do you mean, he can't break them? He's an idol. He's just a statue. And he says, yes, that's my point. Right? It's a supreme God, and these guys aren't it. Okay? Now, here's the question. So that's like, what, 4,000 years ago or so? Now, did those idols stand on the floor? Was Abraham standing on the floor? Was his father standing on the floor? And did the floor hold him up? Okay, let's fast forward a few thousand years to the Greeks. Okay, they had their, you know, different places and all that, you know, Athens sitting up on the hill. Is that the Pantheon? Or? Yeah, like that. Is there a floor there? If you stand on it, do you stay there, or do you fall through and end up down in, you know, Hades place or something, where you really wish you weren't, right? No. Okay. Let's fast forward to the Romans. You know, 2,000 years ago, they had floors also. Did they do the same thing? Okay. Let's fast forward another truth, since we're working at thousands of years. Let's fast forward. You know, miss out on, you know, Renaissance and the Dark Ages and the 18th. Okay. We'll go forward now. Do the floors do the same thing? What about windows? What about doors? What about ceilings? What about walls? What about heating? Right? What about kitchens? What about bedrooms? Bathrooms? You understand? Eternal principles, because it's all Krishna. So this idea is called the Yuga. These things don't apply. This is for less intelligent people, or as a Shastra would say, for immature persons. Right? Children will say stuff like this. Someone mature in Krishna consciousness doesn't say this. You can't say this. You can say that how we'll apply it, yes, that's time, place, and circumstance. That's Vedic, not modern. Why does time, place, and circumstance work? Because it's Vedic. It doesn't work because it's modern. It works because it's Vedic. But it's according to the adhikar. Just like Prabhu was saying, if you have somebody who's the boss, now the boss is in charge. He says what to do. But if the boss doesn't have the qualification in an area, what he says to do will fail. Right? How many bosses are there in the world that their companies or businesses are falling apart? Why? Because they're not qualified. Right? And then after this and that, and the whole insanity, and then the board on top then brings in a new man. In 6 months, he's turned around a completely insane situation, and now they're making profit. So, what's that? That's the adhikar. That's the qualification. That's the maturity. Now, they're both, let's say, good in business and economics, but one's more mature than the other. So therefore, one can do better than the other one. That's time, place, and circumstance. Not just, I feel like it. I got an opinion. Right? Right. It's an old saying, I don't know if I get it right, but basically the point is first engage the brain before you engage the mouth. Right? Do you have a saying similar like that?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, yeah. Because otherwise, anybody can run their mouth. Right? Have opinions, have this and that, right? All you have to do is go down, you know, any place. Some of the square, go down to the pubs, go down to everybody's got an opinion. But the reality of who can do something, who has the maturity, that's another thing. Right? Why? It has to be in line with Krishna's existence. Krishna is everything, so what we're talking about here. So when we're talking about Varnasrama, we're talking about Krishna. Krishna's feet, Krishna's waist, Krishna's arms, Krishna's head. And so since Krishna is eternal, he's Aja, unchanging. Therefore, the system is. Text 6. Lord Narayan, along with his partial manifestation, Narada, appeared in this world through the daughter of Daksha Maharaj, known as Murti. He was begotten by Dharma Maharaj for the benefit of all living entities. Even now, he is still engaged in executing great austerities near the place known as Badarikashram. Text 7. The Supreme Being, the Personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic knowledge, the root of all religious principles, and the memory of great authorities. O King Yudhishthira, this principle of religion is to be understood as evidence. On the basis of this religious principle, everything is satisfied, including one's mind, soul, and even one's body. Purport. As stated by Yamaraj, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Yamaraj, the representative of the Lord, who takes care of the living beings after their death, gives his verdicts as to how and when the living beings will change his body. He is the authority, and he says that the religious principles consist of the codes and laws given by God. Right? So that's how religion works, is that you have all these levels of how something functions. Like we said, we have the gross and we have the subtle. Right? And then you have the transcendental. Right? So you have the gross body, you have the subtle body, and then you have the soul. So the laws apply in all three of these. So if you're working at the highest, the other ones are already taken care of. Right? Does that make sense? Let us say we're out in the rain, okay? And we're very happy, right? So is there physical discomfort? No. But if we're out in the rain and we're not happy, we feel physically discomfort. Right? So something that may not be a big thing, if the mind doesn't like it, it becomes a big thing. And if something that could be a big thing, the mind makes it a small thing, it's a small thing. Right? So just in the same way as the subtle body has effect on the gross body, the consciousness has effect on the subtle body. So if you take care of the soul and the nature there, you're taking care of the subtle body, which takes care of the gross. Therefore, he says that, including one's mind, soul, and even one's body. If you connect with the Lord, it's all taken care of. Very nicely. No one can manufacture religion, and therefore manufactured religious systems are rejected by the followers of the Vedic principles. Because religion means the nature of something. So to say it's Kali Yuga, it doesn't function like that. What are you saying? There's a different religion. And now, so what is that religion? That religion will be according to the particular individual and what he likes. They'll redefine, oh no, it's like this or it's like that. This is valuable, this is not valuable. So that's manufacturing religion. So that's kicked out. In Bhagavad Gita 15:15 it said, Vedais cha savarnaham eva vedya. Vedic knowledge means to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Therefore, whether one speaks of the Vedas, scriptures, religion, or the principles of everyone's occupational duty, all of them must aim at understanding Krishna. Right? So here, scripture, religion, occupational duties, all of that must aim at Krishna. So they're all connected. But as we said, there's the primary and there's the secondary. Right? So primary is devotional service. Secondary is the Vedic systems. Right? Varnasrama, and meditation, all these different things. These are the secondary. Right? So you have to see the two connected. Srimad Bhagavatam 126 therefore concludes, Savaipum samparo dharmo yato bhaktir adoksaje ahaitu kyapati hata yayatma suprasidati. In other words, religious principles aim at learning how to render transcendental loving service to the Lord. That service must be unmotivated, unchecked by material conditions. Then human society will be happy in all respects. The Smriti, scriptures following the principles of Vedic knowledge, are considered the evidence of Vedic principles. Right, so Smriti means that you have the Shruti that is giving the Vedic version. Right? The Smriti then gives the evidence of that, how it's applied. Because the Shruti will explain it, but the Smriti will show how it's applied practically. Right? How the great personalities have done it. There are 20 different kinds of scripture for following religious principles. And among them, the scriptures of Manu and Yajnavalkya are considered to be all-pervading authorities. Right? So that means there's no time, place, or circumstance where they don't apply. Right? Because principles are there, you have to apply the principles. If you're doing a technique, just like let's say I'm cooking something, but it's not in connection with the menu or something else. I'm in the kitchen and I'm grating something. But what we're cooking has nothing to do with anything grated. So what's the point? Right? So there has to be a connection. So the point is Manu and Yajnavalkya, they always apply. There's never a situation where they don't apply. So this idea, these things don't, devotees so easily do that. But why do they so easily do that? They're coming from a background that has authority issues. It's not about who wants to follow the rules. Right? It's just like this. If there were no such thing as parking tickets, where would people park? Right? If people didn't come along and put one of those, do you have them here? I don't know, in England they call them a boot. They stick them on your tire. It like locks the tire, you can't drive. Do you have those things here?
I think they just carry the car.
Oh, they just immediately carry it away. Okay. I guess yeah. Okay. But so that didn't happen. That's why people park where they do. People pay the money because if they don't, their car will disappear. And it's more expensive to go get your car back and more trouble than to pay the money. Right? If there were no rules, which side of this road would everybody drive on? Would they stop at the lights? Would there even be lights? Like in Calcutta, they only put in lights, I think, maybe 2 years ago. Before that, it was a total free-for-all. If you were doing 30 kilometers an hour and you drove from one end of Calcutta to the other, it might take you 15 minutes at 30 kilometers an hour. That's the size of Calcutta. But to drive during the traffic hour, it could take you hours. Because there just was no rules. Everyone did whatever they wanted. Like that. Does that make sense? So that's why things are there. Otherwise, it wouldn't. It's not that people are going to naturally follow everything and all of that. So that's the point, is that Manu and Yajnavalkya, they apply everywhere. It can always be applied. So this idea is that no, it's different. This is lack of understanding. This is immaturity. Right? Now, of course, someone who is following the rules to a fault, where they don't see the primary aspect, that's also a problem. Right? But you can't say niyamagraha doesn't become good because you're doing one and you're criticizing the other one. Oh, I follow nicely, those guys don't follow. Or we don't follow, those guys follow and don't even know what they're doing. Right? Both are wrong. The point is one's following because we know how it connects to Krishna. How it pleases Krishna. Right? If we're talking about it's the body of the Lord, then look, Krishna's foot doesn't deal the way Krishna's foot always does. The foot's going to do whatever it likes. How is that going to work out? Is Krishna going to be happy that he wants to stand there and his foot's kind of trying to walk away? Is that something else? Yeah. In Yajnavalkya Smriti it is said, Shruti Smriti Sadachara Swasya Cha Priyam Atmanam Samyak Sankal Aja Kamo Dharma Mulam Idam Srutam. One should learn human behavior from Shruti, the Vedas, and from Smriti, the scriptures following the Vedic rules. Rupa Goswami, as Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu says, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vidin Mina Aikantiki Harya Bhaktir Utpatyayaya Kalpate. The purport is that to become a devotee, one must follow the principles laid down in Shruti and Smriti. One must follow the codes of the Puranas and the Pancharatric Vidhi. One cannot be a pure devotee without following the Shruti and Smriti. And the Shruti and Smriti without devotional service cannot lead one to the perfection of life. And so the point is you're trying to be a pure devotee and you're trying to come to that platform of prema. So therefore, by following the rules given by the acharyas, then one can come to the principle of pure devotion. And from pure devotion you can get to prema. So if one's goal is prema, one has to follow pure devotional service. To do that, you have to follow the rules and regulations given by the acharyas. Right? So therefore, to say, no, we're unique, we're Westerners, we're different, we don't have to do all this, we need to have some new system, that's called trying to create your own religion. And how is that going to get pure devotional service or prema? Does that make sense? Therefore, from all the evidence, the conclusion is that without bhakti, devotional service, there's no question of religious principles. So that was your question before. Religious principles aren't going to be established unless there's bhakti. God is the central figure in the performance of religious principles. So, since a religious principle is connected to the Lord, then why would you do that effort without it being bhakti? Right? A smarta will follow the Vedic system, and they will do everything very, very nicely. Difficulty comes is that because there's no bhakti, then they don't get the eternal benefit. They only get the immediate benefit. They only get dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Well, the devotee, he gets bhakti by that, and at the same time gets dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Right? So therefore, the soul is taken care of by the bhakti, and the subtle and gross body are taken care of by dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So they go together. Almost everything going on in this world as religion is devoid of any idea of devotional service, and is therefore condemned by the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam. Without devotional service, so-called religious principles are only cheating. Right? So therefore it's pointed out that religious principles not being done in devotion are thrown out. That doesn't mean that the Vedic system is thrown out. One has to be very careful there, because otherwise then sometimes it will be mistaken that, how do you say, because here Prabhupada mentions without devotional service, so-called religious principles are only cheating, therefore we're throwing out the Varnasrama system. No, he's pointing out Varnasrama is meant to please the Lord. It's supposed to be devotional service. So Daiva Varnasrama is the only thing to follow. So everything that we're going to learn here has to be seen in connection with devotional service. Otherwise, then it's just, it's nice mundanity instead of not nice mundanity. Okay. So now Narad Muni then starts to describe qualifications. So this is text 8 through 12. These are the general principles to be followed by all human beings. Truthfulness, mercy, austerity, observing fast on certain days of the month, bathing twice a day, tolerance, discrimination between right and wrong, control of the mind, control of the senses, nonviolence, celibacy, charity, reading of the scriptures, simplicity, satisfaction, rendering service to saintly persons, gradually taking leave of unnecessary engagements, observing the futility of the unnecessary activities of human society. Right? So before mentioning about gradually taking leave of unnecessary. So one is being in the material world is unnecessary. We gradually take leave of that. But in specific, we may be engaged in certain activities that aren't so useful in devotional service, but we gradually give them up as we learn how to connect them and that to the Lord. Then it becomes very easy. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then and observing the futility of unnecessary activities of human society. So this being able to see how, if we're functioning within the society and the greater society, we're not, it's not connected to the Lord, connected to devotional service, seeing the weaknesses of that, then it's also part of that. So that's why we were pointing out how we take the modern the modern society, that it has so many weaknesses simply because it's not connected to devotional service. Connected to devotional service, it has all the main principles that are there. It just has to be, now it's just a matter of taking leave of unnecessary engagements. Does that make sense? Remaining silent and grave and avoiding unnecessary talk. Considering whether one is the body or the soul. Distributing food equally to all living entities, both men and animals. Seeing every soul, especially in the human form, as part of the Supreme Lord. Hearing about the activities and instructions given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the shelter of saintly persons. chanting about these activities and instructions, and always remembering these activities and instructions, trying to render service, performing worship, offering obeisances, becoming a servant, becoming a friend, and surrendering one's whole self. Right? So you have your basic activities and qualities necessary, and then you see devotional service. So that's going to be the difference in Nard Muni's description of Varnasrama and Bhrigus. Is Bhrigus only given the basic human things to just engage in the technical system, the secondary. But to engage in the primary, then you have to have the 9 processes of devotional service. Like that. So that's being added here. O King Yudhishthira, these 30 qualifications must be acquired in the human form of life. Simply by acquiring these qualifications, one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. In order that human beings be distinct from the animals, the great Saint Narada recommends that every human being be educated in terms of the above-mentioned 30 qualifications. Nowadays, there is propaganda everywhere, all over the world, for a secular state, a state interested only in mundane activities. But if the citizens of the state are not educated in the above-mentioned good qualities, how can there be happiness? For example, if the total populace is untruthful, how can the state be happy? Therefore, without consideration of one's belonging to a sectarian religion, whether Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or any other sect, everyone should be taught to become truthful. Similarly, everyone should be taught to be merciful, and everyone should observe fasting on certain days of the month. Everyone should bathe twice a day, cleanse his teeth and body externally, and cleanse his mind internally by remembering the holy name of the Lord. The Lord is one, whether one is Hindu, Muslim, or Christian. Therefore, one should chant the holy name of the Lord, regardless of differences in linguistic pronunciation. Also, everyone should be taught to be very careful not to discharge semen unnecessarily. This is very important for all human beings. If semen is not discharged unnecessarily, one becomes extremely strong in memory, determination, activity, and vitality of one's bodily energy. Everyone should also be taught to be simple in thought. Right? So it means if one's not, means, okay, one gets what one feels from that, but the problem is then here, one becomes weak in memory, determination is unfocused, they don't know what to do, their activity, they become not lazy, and their bodily energy, then they lose that. So then it's not that one gains, because the point is there'll be a moment of happiness, and then the rest of the 24 hours and 59 minutes will be, you have to deal with these other aspects. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. There's no question of a secular state or an ecclesiastical state. Unless one is educated in the above-mentioned 30 qualities, there cannot be any peace. Right? So it's not about whether it's a religious state or a secular state. It's about being God-conscious and about having the proper qualification as a human being. You have that, then everything can work nicely. Problem is due to lack of God consciousness, that's why the problems come up. Therefore, people want a secular state. Right? Because people are using the religious elements for their own power and authority and all that. So they're mixing what shouldn't be mixed. Ultimately, it's recommended. Shravanam kirtanam chasya smaranam mahatam gate. Sevaj yavan nater dasyam sakyam atma samarpanam. Everyone should become a devotee of the Lord, because by becoming a devotee of the Lord, one automatically acquires the other qualities. Right? So if one takes up devotional service in any one of those 9 forms, then all the other qualities will naturally develop. That's the main thing. Right? Does that make sense? So by following what's recommended, then automatically these things develop. Right? So, Yas yasti bhaktir bhagavat yakinchana sarver gunais tattva samasate sura. Harav abhaktasya kuto mahadguna manoratena sati dhavato bhavi. Quote, in one who has unflinching devotional service to Krishna, all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods are consistently manifest. However, he who has no devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no good qualification, because he engaged by mental concoction in material existence, which is the external feature of the Lord. It's important to understand this because in dealing with devotees and dealing with non-devotees, then one sees qualities there are lacking. Point is that two aspects. One is that these qualities that one sees in somebody, good or bad, the point is the good qualities, they're all Krishna. They're coming from the universal form. The difference is that the non-devotees have good qualities of Krishna. No, individuals may have, like this, but those are by the modes of nature. The soul doesn't have those qualities. It's just at this point, due to their karma, they manifest some good qualities. They're nice people, they're charitable, or they're considerate, they're like that. Nice, but that's the universal form. That's their conditioning. It's not the soul. So, since they're not engaging these things in the Lord's service, even though they're the Lord's qualities, they will be lost. It's just a matter of time. Right? That's samsara. You're either going up or you're going down. So you go up until you get really good, and then you start going down as soon as you get good. Right? Now, if a devotee is kind or considerate, that's a quality of the soul. Right? Because they're connected to Krishna in devotional service. That doesn't go away. So that's why it said the devotee has all the qualities of the demigod, while the materialist never has any good qualities. Because who's the materialist? Is it the body? It's the soul. So the soul who's not taken up devotional service doesn't have any good qualities. But the soul who's taken up devotional service then has all good qualities. So whatever quality they have is connected to the Lord. Yes?
There is Bhagavatam, Yatra Sanchitane Sarvasva Artha Vilamita. The sages worship Kali because just by following Sankirtan you attain everything
Yes.
valuable. So what does that mean? Is Swartha Abhilavid everything detailed and
Means, just like we said before, if you get the spiritual, you get the subtle. And if you have the subtle, you get the gross. Because they all go together. Does that make sense? So that's the whole thing. So trying to separately do these things is not important. Right? Means it doesn't mean that we don't try to develop skills, but we have to see those skills in connection to Krishna. We can't take it for granted. Right? Because chanting Hare Krishna is direct. Whether you're conscious or not, it is connected to Krishna. But let's say we're learning cooking or doing a management seminar. If we don't see it connected to Krishna, it's not connected. It's that simple, because it's a secondary aspect. The primary is connected, the secondary is not. And what makes the difference between primary and secondary? It's the attitude. So Prajumna is there. If we have the right attitude, then it connects to Krishna. We don't have the right attitude, it's not connected to Krishna. That's why these things I'm mentioning. Oh, it's just time, place, and circumstance. Oh, the Vedic's just theory. Oh, it's called the Yuga. These things don't apply. This attitude won't get you devotional service. When you chant japa and stuff like that you're progressing in devotional service, but outside of the temple, then how are you going to connect it to Krishna? Because we're just taking, I'm a devotee, so it's automatic. No, the holy name is Krishna, therefore it's automatic. But in my house, my money, my body, my family, my facility, that's when you connect. When you think about it, connected to Krishna, it's connected. If you don't, it's not. Therefore, there's called mixed devotional service. Right? Because we generally think of mixed devotional service, meaning when I'm doing from 4 in the morning to 9 in the morning, and there's mixed devotional service. But somehow or another, from 9 o'clock until the next morning, 4 o'clock, that's all pure devotional service. But technically, it's from 4 to 9, that's devotional service, and outside of that, that's the mix. So devotional service mixed with the mundane. Therefore, one's a mixed devotee. Because one's doing devotional service, the direct activities in the morning program, but outside of that, one may not be. An individual may be, but he also may not be. That's the mix. Then the finer point is, okay, the quality of your chanting, the quality of your kirtan, the quality of your Vaishnava etiquette. But that's going to be according to the other thing. Now, if you're working on that, the quality, there's a good chance you'll work on the quality of those outside of the indirect activities. Or if you're trying to connect all the indirect activities to Krishna, there's a good chance the quality of your direct activities will improve. That's the nice thing about devotional service, wherever you start it will work. But if you're not doing either of those, one cannot take it for granted as automatically it's devotional service. You know, I'm going home and taking care of my family, it's devotional service. How is devotional service? You know, you have to be able to define it. You know, if you're just doing anything, how is devotional service? Just like if I go in the kitchen and just do anything, pick up pots, move them around, and stuff, is that cooking? You know, you have to know what you're doing, then you're getting the benefit. Yeah.
So it's like the potency to be able to...
Yes, the potency is there. All we have to do is take it. See, is that when you try to use your intelligence how to do something in devotional service, you're actually working with spiritual intelligence. Because the soul, in Chit, has spiritual intelligence. Just we generally choose not to use it. Right? But it's not that it's that simple. You just see how to use this in Krishna's service. Ananda, I just want to please Krishna. Right? Sat, I am Krishna's eternal servant. Then you're engaging the natural qualities of the soul in Krishna's service. It's that simple. You just have to do that, and you're connected. So that's why even somebody doesn't know much, they only have to know that much to be connected. Then, with time, they can develop, all their skills and technical aspects to, improve the quality of what they're doing, give up unnecessary engagements and that kind of thing. But they simply have to understand those three things, and they're connected. Even if everything else that they're doing is technically not very wonderful. You know what I'm saying? So that's the point. So it's just like, let's say, the man comes to the temple, he hears about offering everything to Krishna. So whatever you do, whatever you eat, like that. So then he goes home that evening, right? And he cooks his normal meal, which is not necessarily anything that we would even consider offering. But he offers it to Krishna because it's coming from him. That devotion will be accepted by Krishna. Now what he's offered may not be, but and so now as he gets purified from that and associating devotees, then he starts to learn, oh, I should be a vegetarian. Krishna, that's what I should offer to Krishna because it's about Krishna's pleasure rather than just what I like to eat. Right? So the devotion has started, his actual proper consciousness has started even before the unnecessary engagements are given up. Sometimes we focus, you have to be vegetarian. No, you have to be God conscious. These things will come automatically by association, by hearing. Does that make sense? So that's the point. So in other words, there's Krishna consciousness. We create the hard preaching. Shastras don't talk hard preaching. It's just talking about what's knowledge. We create the hard preaching. And therefore then we create the soft preaching as a reaction to that. But in reality, all one has to be is Krishna conscious. Because there's going to be situations where there's rules you have to follow. There's going to be situations that there's in application of it, the liberality of it. But being liberal means I'm applying the rule without losing the intent of the rule to the situation in a broad way. That's liberal. But not having standards, I just make it up and whatever's popular and saying that that's liberal. That's not liberal. That's just left-wing conservative. And then you have right-wing conservative. Or you could say right-wing liberal, left-wing liberal, if you prefer that. Or you have right-wing conservative, left-wing conservative. Whatever it is, they're the exact same thing. It's just a matter of whether they follow rules or they make them up. That's the only difference between the conservative and liberal. Do they accept some standard rules and apply everything to that? Or they don't accept any rules and just whatever feels good? Does that make sense? But the point is they each have their system. And they stick to that doggedly. You know, if there's authority, as soon as you say something too authoritative, like that, because that's their rule. You can't have a strong authority. But conservatives, you have to have strong authority. The point is the scriptures you can't go away from. You have to base it on that. But you have to apply it time, place, and circumstance. And the circumstance means patra, means the person. Because generally when someone says, I was just being practical, they're talking about the situation, not the person. Neither themselves nor other people. And why are you complaining? Because either it didn't work, but generally that's not the thing. Otherwise someone wouldn't say I'm being practical. They would probably say I'm being practical because it worked. But while you're mentioning it, why did you do this, is because dealing with the people didn't work out. Right? But they're saying I was being practical. But practical means you have to, they're telling you taking time and place. What about circumstance? Circumstance means you as a person, them as a person. That's the part that's not considered. So that's not practical. Yes.
So even the vision or the interest in improving the other comes from the devotion.
Yes. Otherwise, why improve it? Why improve management unless it'll make Krishna consciousness work better? It's not that management will generate. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, you're saying if we have money, then people can become Krishna conscious. No, people are Krishna conscious despite. Krishna consciousness is independent. Then you can try to make a nice environment by these secondary aspects. So that's the advantage, but if you don't see it in connection with the primary. So if in developing the secondary, you're breaking down the rules of the primary, it is no service at all. It's actually a disservice. Does that make sense? You know, it's just like this. You have a Krishna conscious person, right? The mature should be making decisions. So if you create a administrative system that puts authority in the hands of people who are immature, then how is that an improvement? Does that make sense? How is that an improvement? Just because that's what people do in the modern, but who's talking, what government is Krishna conscious? So, you know, you're not worried about that. It's just, and everything's on technical skill, they have the technical skill. But the point is that it has to be maturity in Krishna consciousness. So that's the difficulty. Before, it was, you had mature senior Vaishnavas, and a subcommittee meant a subcommittee of mature senior Vaishnavas. Nowadays, subcommittee means a bunch of people who are interested in doing it, but not necessarily mature. And then they have the authority that's supposed to be in the hands of those who are mature. And their decisions, generally speaking, if you look at them individually, you know, one by one, they're not mature. You know what I'm saying? So how is that an improvement? How is that improved devotional service? You know what I'm saying? But it brings out the principle of equity. You know, we're all equal. Yeah, we're all equal to, you know, be like Mauritian frogs. You know? Anybody gets ahead, then drag them down. That's it. Not that people move forward. So therefore, nothing moves forward. It all just is in the same kind of, you know, because probably wants something dynamic, you know. But, so that's what one's trying to do. Okay? Yes?
Maharaj, how would you comment on a situation where devotees, they have a common goal, which is to please Krishna, but the application of this desire and goal is diametrically different to the point that it's completely, you know, exclusive. I give specific example.
Okay.
That there's a faction of devotees in Poland who want to please Krishna, and by being vegans and not offering Krishna meal, and they claim that it's pleasing to Krishna because it's according to principle of house protecting.
And how are they protecting cows?
By
Why
not
don't
killing them,
why don't all those city people who are saying that move out to the farm and take care of the cows? You know what I'm saying? But they'll never do that. They don't care about the cows. It's like this. If karmis were not vegans, would devotees be vegans? If karmis didn't have a tattoo, would they have a tattoo? If karmis didn't have an earring, you know how long the Brahmas have had earrings? When I came to India, South Indian Brahmins all had these big stud can earrings. Huge. You know, if they were an actual diamond, they'd be like 5 carats each. Like that. But devotees don't have, because it's in. So they're only vegans because the karmis are vegans. They don't care a damn about the cows. Because otherwise, if they did, why did they go out to the farm and take care of the cows? Why haven't they arranged? Now in Poland, there are no farmers who are taking care of their cows. There's not one.
perhaps one.
Okay, so have they found them? Have they now support him? Buy his milk? Figure out how to distribute it? Work it out? No, but all that's work. Because being a vegan means you can sit around, eat your salad, and complain about the guys on the next table who are vegetarians and what nonsense, rascal demons they are. And then you feel I'm doing something. But they're just wastrels. It's like this. The point is dharma. What is our nature? Our nature is to offer everything to Krishna. What is a cow's nature? To give milk to offer to Krishna. What is a farmer's nature? He's supposed to take care of that cow in getting the milk. Okay? So now, I'm there, the cow's there, the farm's there. Now, I'm doing my duty offering the milk to Krishna. The cow's doing its duty giving the milk to offer to Krishna. And the farmer is arranging the milk, but taking care of the cow nicely, he's not doing it. So that one part now, the cows, we're not going to offer to Krishna. How are you benefiting the cow? No vegan is benefiting any cow. You don't buy the milk, they go to the slaughterhouse anyway. It's not like, okay, we don't get this certain thing, buy a certain thing, and so therefore the market drops and people stop harvesting it. No, they're going to eat the cows anyway. It's just a matter of whether they eat them today or they eat them after 9 years when they dry up. That's the reality. So now, are you going to benefit that cow by offering the milk to Krishna? Or you're not and figure that I've done so much for the cows? What have one's done for the cows? And where does it stop? Oh, the thing, don't offer sugar to Krishna, Prabhupada said, Krishna likes sugar, you don't want to eat it, don't eat it yourself. But don't not offer it to Krishna. So offer milk to Krishna. It's between him and that. What are you doing to protect the cow? How are they protecting a cow? How? What's the mechanics? How have they protected that cow?
Well, they claim that by not paying money for this, they don't support killing.
No, they kill the cow anyway. I'll tell you that. It was in Israel, at a kibbutz there. And in this kibbutz, they had 2 halls, vegetarian hall and a non-vegetarian hall. Because from the Holocaust, there's a lot of people who just became vegetarians. Like this. These are just karmis, right? So, we're getting a tour of the place, and they show us the dairy, big dairy and all that. And they're explaining how they have these machines, they stick them on the cows, and it, automatically milks the cows and this and that. And like that, and then they mentioned that they have to be able to do that, milk it within a certain time. It was like within 3 minutes or 9 minutes, or something like that. So the question came up, what happens if it takes longer than that amount of time to milk the cow? And then the guy just looked at him and says, you like your steak, right? And then just moved on from there. So in other words, dairy cows are up for slaughter, it's just a matter of when. So the point is the cow and beef industry has been going on long before vegans came along, right? There's guys who were out in the kind of the Midwest and Far West that we used to wear blue jeans, ride on horses and all that, and they'd herd cows, and known as cowboys, because generally not so many girls were out there, so then they were cowboys. So this industry has been going on a lot longer. So out there they have a herd. It's all just male cows, right? What do they do with all the female cows? No, they just have herds, and as they take them out there, they graze and they get big, and when it gets big enough, they herd it down to Texas to the slaughterhouses. So they don't care what it is. Now, if it'll give milk, then they'll get that on the side. Point is, businessman's going to get money anyway. He's going to get money from meat, or if he can get meat and milk, then he'll do that. But if not, they're going to eat the meat. So it's not that you've protected the cow.
But at least they claim that they are not a part of this, personally.
No, but then don't say you're protecting the cow. Don't say that. Just say I'm not involved. Protecting the cow means that living entity. You take the milk, offer it to Krishna. That living entity that gave the milk gets the same benefit you get in devotional service for offering it. They get the same benefit. The Pujari sits down, offers a milk product to Krishna. The benefit they get from that devotional service, the cow who gave the milk gets the exact same benefit. So that's what's missing in the whole equation. And they'll say, oh, well, that's not enough. And so who cares? Who cares? Like, Prabhupada doesn't know what's going on with this stuff. So I'm saying suddenly they're so God conscious, so cow conscious. And my point is the only reason they're cow conscious in this way is because the karmis are. And as soon as vegan moves on, then they'll be rushing to keep up with the next thing. So it's not based on Shastra, it's not based on Guru, it's not based on Sadhu, it's just based on Vox Populi, whatever in the air, and whatever's the thing that as a youth I can talk about and get upset about. You know what I'm saying? That's all. See, other things that may have a difference. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
I'm fully convinced what you're saying, but to talk with these guys...
Don't bother talking with them. Why waste your time talking with a mundane point? It's not spiritual like that. Because the point is how many vegans do you know go out and work on a farm? If they were really concerned about the farm, they would be the ones out on the farm taking care of the cows and making sure there's milk. But they don't value milk. So the point is that you don't drink milk, you don't have the finer brain tissues. You don't have the finer brain tissues, you cannot understand this conversation. So it's a waste of time to try. May like it or not, but who cares? Because it's not about opinion. It's God's creation, it's God's cows. So what are you doing for God's cows? You're not offering the milk, you're not going and protecting. You're just sitting there eating your salad and feeling great. What about, is that salad, has that been taken care of nicely? In Holland, the vegetables there, they gas them to scare them. And because it scares them, they grow bigger and quicker, trying to protect themselves. So, what about the vegetables? What do you care about the vegetables? You know what I'm saying?
I brought all this arguments, but it goes on.
No, it's
not devotees.
Don't even bother. Don't even bother. Don't waste your time. Talk about something else. Doing kirtan or something like that. It's just that. The problem is that that's their identity, is that they're a vegan. Not that they're a devotee, they're a vegan. And then the problem comes is that unless everybody else is a vegan, they don't feel good. Point is, they want to be a vegan, Who cares? Chinese are vegans because they can't digest milk anyway. So, hey, So the whole point is it's their identity. They think that's the devotional service. No, the devotional service is pleasing Krishna by his system. And so why would Prabhupada talk about milk so much? By the milk in the 60s, it wasn't the same system. Exact same system.
There's even a story from New York temple from 70s. Devotees, they couldn't get any other milk than mixed with enriched, with fish oil.
Yeah.
So they asked Prabhupada about this, and he said, if they can offer fish oil, and he said, please continue offering this milk, and sandesh and other milk sweets, and don't stop.
Yeah, of course.
Prabhupada didn't know that the cows were killed.
Yeah.
And here we have even fish oil, non-vegetarian thing.
Yeah.
He
No, the point is that there's devotional service and then there's the mundane. The mundane thinks the secondary makes devotional service. They think the vegan makes devotional service. No, devotional service makes the vegan. See, by being austere and being vegan, that they're restricting their lifestyle in that, they'll get benefit from that because it's austere. So that's why they'll feel good about it, not because they're being austere, but it's not because they're not offering the milk. It's because they're restricting their lifestyle. But, something like that becomes prominent. What about illicit sex? Or, other things like that.
I have no problem with vegan devotees. The only problem arises when they start to criticize the
That's
devotees.
all. That's all the point. That's the point is that they can't. So that's how you know it's mundane. Because if it was real, it's them. So that's just what they do. Someone else is vegan or not. What do they care? But it's an issue, it's an identity, it's something to get out there and fight about. It's like a crusade. It's just like, does it matter who is sitting in Jerusalem? As long as people can go there and worship, what does it matter? But it's made into this whole thing, we got to go free, and this and that goes back and forth, and thousands of people get slaughtered and all that kind of stuff because it's a thing, it's a crusade. But that gives life to them. Because there's a good chance that that's what they talk about all the time. What about devotional service? What about that? So, point is we don't care if someone's a vegan, but they shouldn't say that someone's not a vegan is a nonsense. You want to be a vegan? Hey, cool. What do we care? But to make it that devotional service is based on that, now that's a total misunderstanding of the philosophy, and I don't care who it is. Okay, we'll break here for a few minutes. So we'll come back. Then one has to look at it that does Prabhupada's pointing out that if one's not a devotee and one is, takes up these new age things or is vegan, like that, it's an improvement because it means you're thinking, you're conscious, you're thoughtful, you're looking at a bigger picture than just your own sense gratification. So it's an improvement. That is you could say, a better quality individual. Right? They're more pious, more thoughtful. But as a devotee, then the question comes, is it because I'm a vegan that makes devotional service? It improves devotional service, or devotional service improves that I might be a vegan? That's what it comes down to. So if one thinks that because I'm a vegan, therefore I'm a better devotee, then you're saying that bhakti is based on karma. Because my karma is better than your karma, therefore I'm a better devotee. But the point is that coming in, using it as a point of reference to engage in devotion, to understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is fine. So you preach from that platform, that's great. But one has to actually come to the devotional platform because being a vegan is not devotional. Even if one cares about the cows, great. But so do the smartas. Every Hindu cares about the cows. In fact, the last Indian government's done more in the way of protecting cows than, all the vegans in the world. They banned cow slaughter in so many states. Now that's something dynamic. Because the point is unless that's happening, so you understand, so either you're offering something to Krishna and it's devotional there, or you're going out and rendering service to the cows. But otherwise if you do neither, then at least one is thoughtful, that's good. That's appreciated, that one is thoughtful and thinks about the cows. But as far as practically getting something done, because that's the point, is that effect only comes from action. So you have to see does this seeming action, or a more clear definition, lack of action, does it actually give an effect? So it may give an effect on the individual that they're more considerate in trying to see a bigger picture, so they'll be elevated. But the question in reality is, does it actually benefit and elevate the cow? That's where it's going to come down to. You know what I'm saying? So it's a nice starting point. Just like someone does yoga, it's a nice starting point, but it's not that the yoga makes devotional service. Devotional service is independent. It's based on the consciousness, it's the mentality. Yes?
What about the other version that, not vegan, but I take only sadam ahimsa milk, and I live in a community. It's not always enough milk there, but still I will take only ahimsa milk.
That's there, but then it's support of, therefore they should take care of the cows and more service, therefore more milk. Like that, that's there. So I see there's some leadership that takes that angle because they're trying to wake the community up to supporting the Goshala that's already there. You know, so they're not taking any dairy products is basically in I say what's the word you use when you're not supporting or boycotting like that, but they're boycotting dairy products is simply because they have a Goshala and it doesn't produce enough because there's not enough input from the community in either service or money or support or something that they can expand it to make enough for the whole community. So instead just they would rather just go out and buy and stuff like that. So they're trying to make them aware of running our own Goshala. So that's a whole different thing because its end result is that you would have a nice big Goshala with all kinds of nice cows. But my main point, what I'm saying is, most vegans, the concept of that is there, and there's also a good chance that if you brought some dairy product that was from protected cows and gave it to the vegans, would they eat it? There's a good chance they wouldn't, because it's their I don't eat dairy. That's the identity. It's not so much I'm protecting cows. It's I don't eat dairy. There are vegans that if you do have, they happily take. So now that you could say is a more sincere vegan. But the ones who don't take, then it's just an identity of something to do. So that's sad. Because if that's all you got, you know. So it's just like being anything else, being a hippie, being a mod, being a punk, being a this or that. That's all you got. So, there should be something more. You know what I'm saying? Yes, is it on this topic? If it's not, then we go to his question.
It's related to what you said in the beginning of this session. You mentioned the vegans and the New Age people, and also like other kind of Sattvic people who are thoughtful. So are they like more prone to take up Krishna consciousness?
They can, but the problem is unless they move beyond it, then they'll be subjected to the weaknesses of the neophyte position. Arta, Artarte, Jigyasu, Jnani, right? They all want something material, right? Arta, they're in anxiety, they want the anxiety to go away. Artarte, they want facility, right? Jigyasu is just interested to know about the nature of the relationship, God, the universe, the soul, just technical points. Jigyasu wants to know about the person and things like that. You understand? But the weakness in all of these is not about the devotion. You understand? It's not about the devotion. Devotion may be used, but once it's gained, they may stop. Once they gain the knowledge I want, or once I get facility, or once my anxiety goes away, I may stop devotional service. You know what I'm saying? So the whole point is it's based on the bodily position, and it's not a sadhana. It's not something recommended by the Shastra. So that's the first thing is you have to do. You go by that. What are the diets recommended in Shastra? What's the reason for it? Because the point is that since we are conditioned, we have to use the brain, and the brain, by drinking milk, develops the finer brain tissues. Then we're able to understand the finer points of devotional service. So therefore, there's an advantage. And the point is both you and the cow get the benefit. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? cow's milk's been offered to Krishna, they get the benefit. It's been offered to the Vaishnavas, and the Vaishnavas get benefit from that. They get the benefit from that also. So it doesn't end just with the offering. Then it ends up with the distribution and the benefits that people get. So that's the point. Devotional service benefits so many. Right? We're sitting here, we're discussing, Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, how many, little individual, bacteria and all those guys are floating around in the air here. So they're being subjected to devotional sound vibration. They're getting benefit. Does that make sense? So that's the thing. Devotional service, the effect that it has, is not fully appreciated. How much effect is there? Because you're talking adyata sukriti, it takes time. Like you see someone, they come in contact, they immediately take up devotional service. Someone else comes in contact, it takes a while. Like the devotees come now and again, like that. But it just means it builds up, and when it comes to a point, then Shraddha is there. And having developed that Shraddha, now they engage in proper devotional service. So that it means that it's coming, causeless mercy, It's just, it's not that these particular, bugs floating around the air did something specific. But they're getting the opportunity, they're hearing. At least being subjected to the sound vibration. So that will build next lifetime more and more and more until at one point it turns into Shraddha. So therefore the piety that they have is nice, but it can't be taken that it's devotional. Otherwise we'd have to take Smarta Brahmins as devotional. They follow all the rules nicely, they're worried about the cows. They'll go out there, it's like this, your standard human, Hindu, like that real, flag waving, card carrying, and and that actually means something. They'll actually go out there and get themselves killed protecting cows. There was something with cows, they go out there and fight and they might get killed. Would the vegan be doing that? Or he's just sitting around in this nice little vegan cafe, in his, safe little place, and like that. Has he met a cow? Has he touched a cow? You know what I'm saying? So the whole point is you have to know how far something's useful. Like Prabhu was mentioning before, someone's in charge, so then they think that they know everything about everything. It's a standard mistake. But the point is no, there's a qualification, there's an adhikar. That's why Shastras mention it. And the adhikar is not I'm in charge, or not that I'm a vegan. The point is so then, okay, you're a vegan. What's your maturity in being a vegan? You know what I'm saying? Because they have a particular definition of what protecting cows means. So now we can't run a goshala, neither are they. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure that there are, but I haven't heard of any vegan dairy farms where vegans are out there running a dairy farm because they want to make milk available for other vegans. Have you ever heard of one? I've never heard of one. Maybe there is, but it's, I'm not saying that there's not, but I've never heard of one. Because all the vegans I know of all live in the city. Because all the country people, they live out there with the cows and that, and they like the cows. They pat them on the head and they milk them in the morning and they drink milk. So it's a different thing. Does that make sense? Like that. So that kind of a thing is that. So what we're missing here is that the depth and maturity of understanding how far that is. It's useful to make you conscious. But the point is unless it's taken to Krishna, and Krishna likes it, they're all Krishna's cows anyway. So it's like this. Let us say someone comes to the temple, okay? And now we have a nice little table there, a little person sitting there, and when we say little, I don't mean in stature, I just mean that someone's sitting there, okay? So then anybody walks in the door, then as soon as they come in, then they have a list of questions they ask them. And what is the purpose of asking these questions? To find out if this person is in any way, shape, or form abused in any situation. At home, at work, with friends and all that. And then as long as they're not, okay, you let them in. But if you find out they're abused, oh, we can't support abused people. You know, it's abuse, so therefore you can't come in the temple and do service. How does that work out logically? Sounds pretty stupid. Okay, so just extend the application. Point is what did the cow do wrong? They're taking it to the cow, the dairy farmers, but the cow is still doing the cow job. What did the cow do wrong? So the point is the cow's suffering anyway. You take the milk, then at least they get the spiritual benefit. Next life they won't be a cow. And anyway, cows generally take birth as humans. So now to take birth as a human, who's going to have the agata sukriti of doing devotional service? So much better. You know, if they wanted to do something, then do something about the cow, the dairy farmer. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Thank you.
Maharaj, what is the principle one can see unnecessary engagements in one's life?
Oh, okay, okay. No, okay, if you look at what's the primary aspect of doing something that pleases Krishna as a person, then we would look at what activities we're doing and seeing what ones are those and which ones are I'm taking my own interests and engaging in Krishna's service, right? So unnecessary would most likely be in that category. You know, chanting your japa or taking darshan of the deity or charanamrita is never going to fall into unnecessary. You know, unless you come to the temple and in ecstasy take the charanamrita bowl and pour it over your head and roll around on the ground. You know, like that. That might be considered unnecessary. But, you know, but in general, most practice, you know, the things, you know, okay. So then it's going to be within, so the direct activities are always going to be necessary. Unnecessary is going to come within indirect. Right? So now you look at it, the first thing to look at is in indirect is, what are my duties? What's defined by Scripture? What am I supposed to be doing? So then seeing that, then that's okay. Now it's things outside of that. So in other words, you have nitya, naimittik, and kamika. Nitya means daily duties that are recommended. Naimittik means occasional duties that are recommended. And kamika means they're things that you had a desire for, therefore only you're doing them. They're not recommended or not recommended. You know, like let's say the, what do you call it? Putra Kameshti Yagya. Like sometimes you hear about these kings, they don't have a son or a child. So then they do a yagya to have a child. So that's kamika. Means you don't have to do that. Right? It's not part of their daily or occasional. It's not like following a codicy or, you know, these kind of things. So it's just something that they're doing because of their own interest. Right? So then you have to look at what activities I'm doing that are of my own interest. Right? But I'm doing it in such a way that I'm connecting it to Krishna. Right? So as long as that desire is, you could say, necessary and that were quite important to us, then we would maintain it. But as soon as we see that it's not so important, then those are the ones we would target to start to get rid of. But there's no rush on these things. It's just as they come naturally. Does that make sense? So when we're younger, one has so many, or one is in the mood to develop so many. But as one gets older, then one starts to see what's actually more important and what's not. And so then one just starts to drop those things as one goes. That makes sense? So it'll come with the secondary. So first is if it's my duty, I'm doing it. So just like, let's say someone's a grihasta, So that's their duty, taking care of the family and all that. Now that's originally there. Technically, it's not an important thing for the soul to be a grihasta. But because of our conditioning, we are. But being a grihasta, we have our duties, we're taking care, so therefore it's recommended within the scriptures, within Varnasrama. Right? So at this point in our life, then it's not to be given up, even if we lose the interest in it or the need for it. But if the family unit is still necessary, children are growing up, everyone's still being situated, then we do our duties until that age when we're not required to do them anymore. Right? Then one moves on. One doesn't move on earlier because, you know, you had a fight with the wife, so you're not interested in grihasta life, so now you're going to take your bag, go to your friend's house, be Varnaprastha, at least for, 3 days, until you know, somebody needs to clean up all the pizza boxes, and all the, empty cans of drink and stuff like that, and so, So that would continue, but then when it gets to the point then past 50, now it's the time to start looking at, now this starts to become an unnecessary activity that's going on as a grihasta. So then one has to transform it into Vanaprastha. Does that make sense? So as a grihasta, then it's an important element, but as in older age, then it has to turn into Vanaprastha. Then it would be unnecessary. Right? So therefore, the expanding, the developing, the social, all these different things, that would be unnecessary. Now just husband and wife cooperating together to be Krishna conscious and focus on the direct activities of devotional service, that would now be necessary, and these other things would be unnecessary. Right? So at every moment it changes. That's the thing about this primary and secondary, is that when you're dealing with, if you're taking primary as devotional service, then that always remains, and then the whole Varnashram system would be the secondary. But even within that, you have to know what's what. Like the example is given that for a Kshatriya, he has to protect the people. So he has to see that there's a peaceful environment, right? How to develop a peaceful environment? He has to develop wisdom, right? Because then if the ruler has wisdom, then he will act in such a way as to not be so militaristic if it's unnecessary. There's some kings that even you don't need to, they have to go out and fight and conquer and stuff like that. So how do you get rid of that? By wisdom. Right? So they're trying to get to the point of peacefulness by wisdom. Okay? Now let's say we have a Brahmin. Now he needs to develop wisdom. How does he do this? By being peaceful. You understand? So what's primary for one is secondary for the other. So it depends on your position. That's how you define it. But all these are within actually secondary compared to devotional service. So devotional service is the actual primary, and everything else is secondary. But within that, you have what will be primary and secondary, because it's a formula. It always works. That's the thing about seemingly confusing thing about the Vedic formulas is they always apply in every situation. So once you've decided what's primary and secondary, you can take the primary and divide it into primary and secondary. Take the secondary and divide it into primary and secondary, because the formula always functions, because it's always Krishna. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So like that. Does that work?
It works, yeah. Just one question. In this transition, when this transition happens, let's say from to Vanaprastha, what is primary to provide that you turn into that new in Vanaprastha, or maintain? For instance, there's no follower who can maintain your for instance kingdom or facilities. Should you continue to be the leader, the king, unless it is
you can, but then you're maintaining rather than expanding.
I got it.
You understand? So, and maintenance may mean there's some expansion, but it's not like, it's not like you're taking $1 million business and trying to turn it into $1 billion business. You're taking $1 million and keeping at it $1 million. You know, so it works. It takes care, it runs, everybody's taken care of, dependents are taken care of, it all works nicely.
I get it.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so then purport. After giving a general list of 30 qualifications for one's behavior, Narad Muni describes the principles of the 4 varnas and 4 ashrams. A human being must be trained in the above-mentioned 30 qualities, otherwise he's not even a human being. So this is the advantage of devotional service. It's why we say devotional service is independent, because even without being a human being, you can take part in devotional service. But you will find things go much nicer as a human being. Therefore, these 30 qualities are developed. Right? Does that make sense? That's how the system's so good, is that it's independent. That's what we're saying, is that by devotional service, the attitude is what makes it what it is. But now we're not talking about the sahajya, just the attitude, we don't care for the rules. No, we care about the rules and the attitude, right? And the goal, and the method. We care about all 4 of these. And we can define what's primary, what's secondary, what's the external result, what's the subtle result or the internal result, you know, the change in the mind and the heart. Right? We can define all that. So that's what makes a difference, is that sort of thing. We're saying one thing is that, oh, it's about the moods, so the liberals are like that. No, but we have a structure, the conservatives are like that. So that's the whole point, is that it's the actual middle path. It's a devotional service. Pure devotional service is the actual middle path, because it follows the rules according to the individual. That's the whole thing, because as we said before, conservative applies the rules but not to the individual. And liberal deals with the individual, there's no rules. You know? So that's the thing, is that the middle path means you have rules, you apply to the individual, and that requires maturity. That requires training.
We often meet people who are connected with different yoga movements.
Okay.
So we are presenting Bhakti Yoga. So it's so that the results of Bhakti Yoga are there on the mental and spiritual platform, or does it apply on mental, spiritual, and
physical
platform?
It affects all of them. Just like this. Okay, they're sitting there and coming to this studio and doing 20 minutes, 40 minutes. How many days a week?
About 1 or 2 days.
Okay. What about getting up every morning in the Brahma Muhurta? Does that have an effect on the spiritual, mental, and physical?
Yeah.
What about, you know, taking the bath, doing all these different things, eating at regulated times? You know what I'm saying? They do sit there and do the yoga, they're quiet there, they're wearing the leotards, it's got all the nice oriental kind of stuff around on the walls. Someone makes noise, they hit the gong, so they're like this and that. Okay, but outside of that, they eat anything they like, any time they like. Is their diet regulated by yoga?
Not necessarily.
No. It means they may be, you know, new agey and be more considerate of their diet and the environment and all that, but is it defined by Shastras? Is it defined by yoga? So how is it connected? What's the yama and niyama? How do you define what to do and what not to do? Right? Niyama means there's many ways you could do something, one is picked. You understand? You know, just like you eat prasadam with your right hand. You could eat with your left hand. You could just get down there and stick your face in it. You know, there's many options. Right? But so niyama means it says out of all these you do this one. So that's why it's called a restriction. But it's restricting means just saying which one should be used. That's why we think it's a restriction, because then it gets in the way of my freedom. Does that make sense? Right? So the idea is that these, what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and also when you say you should do something, you should follow the 4 regular principles, means you should not follow them. You should chant 16 rounds, is inferring you should not chant. You understand? So yama and niyama is the same thing, just one is looking at that what you should be avoiding and what you should do. But they're both saying the same thing, because by saying one, it means the other. If I say you should eat with your right hand, it means you shouldn't use your left. You understand? So these kind of things, so they're defined like that, because by performing yoga, then it purifies the mind so that you can then think of the Lord. That's what you're trying to get to. So thinking of the Lord is the point of the yoga system. So if you're thinking of the Lord, that means all the other aspects of the Ashtanga yoga system have been completed. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's much more developed than, sitting there in the pretzel form, but you do a mudra like that, you get the same actual benefits, physical benefits of doing a full asana. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot more subtlety going on in the yoga system than they know, because they're only doing hatha yoga. They're not even, nowadays they don't even do the pranayama, do the raja yoga. People can't sit there long enough to do pranayama. They don't really deal with it anymore. Go back 10 years, 20 years, they used to do it. But nowadays they don't do it. So they only do hatha. They only do the seating postures. But now, where are they situated? They're sitting nicely there. But then after that, they're situated where? At their home. What's the quality of their home? Is it in goodness? You know what I'm saying? They're at their job. They're down at the disco or nightclub or he's saying. So what's the situation? The devotee, wherever he is, he's situated in Krishna's service. Is there not going to be benefit there? Yes, no. So if you want to know more about yoga and how it connects and all that, read the chapters on Kapila Muni and yoga. He shows how it all connects to the Lord. Yes?
Hey, Krishna. There is a question that kind of bothers me about understanding the principle of devotional service, the nature of it. I have been in a situation a couple of times when there comes like a person that asked me, for example, offer the prasad or the food for Krishna, and by reasoning it like, okay, you do it because you're more close to Krishna, or you something, this kind of reason that I'm not qualified, you do it, or something like this. And in some sense, I'm not saying that I'm qualified, but it's a principle that we also do the offerings, or we do the devotion service by the mercy of others and like that. But on the other hand, it's like I feel like, okay, this person should do it themselves to create their personal relationship to Krishna. So I'm just like how you say, trying to understand is it the process that we can I find myself also doing that I kind of try to get mercy from more qualified devotees or something like, okay, they do it and then I eat the prasad, because I'm more sure that when they make the service for Krishna, they are more pure and their connection to Krishna is more pure, then I get the mercy from them. But on the other hand, it's also that, is it a little bit cheating that I should also do it myself and try to get on that level and develop myself?
Why would it be cheating?
Yeah, like...
it's just like this. You're at home.
Yeah.
So every time you make an offering, you call up the advanced Vaishnava in the community and ask them to come over. And so, you have to work out a schedule so that they can get to everybody's house and make. If somebody has some relatives over, so they have, it's out of the ordinary kind of timing, so they need special consideration. So this devotee has a full-time service of going around and offering at everybody's house. Is that...
No, I'm just...
You understand? So then the point is at your house you're going to be offering it.
Yeah.
Right? At the temple on general things you're going to be offering it. You might consider it special festivals or stuff like that. There might be consideration, but not necessarily.
Yeah, but this is like a normal scene of everyday life, not like, of course I'm in a temple, different thing, but in my everyday life there happens this kind of situations with some devotees, and then I'm just asking if instead of I do the service for them, I ask.
But the point is you can look at it also, if you want to take the humble position, that I'm not the advanced one, they're advanced, so if they offer, then that would be nicer. But if they've asked you to do it, then you're putting yourself in the position of servant, so therefore on their order, you're doing it. Does that make sense?
But
You know what I'm saying? You can't be humble from all directions.
yeah. But
I'm in control of this because I'm the humble one. You know what I'm saying?
should we also encourage the people to do it themselves? Like if there comes like a
Who are the people?
no, anybody, new devotee, new person who is interested about devotional
But
service.
what do you mean by encourage them to do? I mean, what's the situation?
Yeah, the situation can be like.
Means like here, we have the temple, we have the deities. It's not that everybody walks in the door, we encourage them to make the offering. Those qualified people, majorities do, but they should understand the principle, and then when they go to their house or whatever, they eat anything, they should offer it. You understand? So that's the point, is that there's situations, there's adhikar, who can offer for the deity, so there has to be a particular standard. Like that. Does that make sense? But in regular, in your day-to-day life, then every individual should take, advantage of that.
Yeah, on the other hand, also the devotional service is like that if I have understood rightly, is that everybody is qualified to do it, in a sense.
Everyone's, yes, to do devotional service, but what's the devotional service? You have to be able to see what's the primary and secondary. To have devotion for Krishna, that everyone can do, but at a certain technical point. It's just like this. Is driving the car devotional service? But that's what I'm just saying. Could you drive the car as devotional service? Okay? You're taking the car, driving to the temple, or going to the airport, picking up a devotee. Is that devotional service?
Yeah.
Okay. So, technically speaking, you could say, therefore, everybody qualifies. So do you just send anybody with the car? Or someone who actually has a license and knows how to drive and doesn't have a million parking tickets and other fines?
But
You understand? So that's what we're talking about, the primary and secondary.
Yeah.
If you want to be a manager, you have to be able to tell this difference. Otherwise, you will make mistakes.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, maybe I have not understood what are the primary, but I see that, for example, okay, chanting the japa is primary for everybody, or you
Right.
cannot, I cannot chant japa for somebody else. Nobody
Yes.
can come to me and say like, oh, chant japa for me, So I was thinking that maybe also maybe it's not for me clear that maybe offering food is primary.
But on what environment are you offering food?
No,
You're at your home,
this
then
home.
everybody
Yeah,
offers. Whoever's there, it's your home, you offer it. That's someone else, you know what I'm saying? But you could start, how you say, prashad offering services,
Yeah, my question was in the environment out of the
POS.
temple.
Right? Like that, so call up your POS representative, then you have to work out, do you pay for the transportation, or they bring their own, you pay them back, or, it'd be a whole scene to work out. So like that, but the temple you're dealing with the deity, so therefore personally, so those who have that more personal understanding of the deity, then they're qualified to make that offering. Does that make sense? Like that. But in the home environment, then not anybody makes. What's not understood?
I'm not sure if I can describe my question, or what to say. It's just that I just
Would it be that it becomes more prasad if it's more advanced?
in that sense that
But what I'm saying is, what's your alternative in your house? What is the situation that you're talking about? Because we're not talking about the deities. We're not talking about your house. What are we talking about? We're out on Sankirtan or something, and someone goes into the shop, buys some peanuts, and then who's going to offer it? So then it's, no, the more advanced, no, he's more advanced, no, you're more advanced, and like this and that.
Okay, the peanuts scene.
Okay, so the peanut scene is just, the point is that, you know, let's say you get it and you ask them to do it, and they say, no, you should do it, then you just do it.
Okay, but my problem in that sense is that, how to say that, I see the offering to Krishna as creating a relationship to Krishna or something
Yes.
like this.
So
I
but,
think
but are you the senior person there or not?
No, I'm just equal with everybody. You know.
So then if they've asked you to do it, you do it. And most likely you'll always become the peanut offerer. You know, just like somebody always gets the drums, somebody always drives, somebody always sets out, you know, so you'll be the peanut offerer.
If they just
You know what I'm saying? Because all of it's devotional service, so point is Krishna has asked you to do it, so you do it. The Vaishnava said you ought to make the offering, so make it.
okay, simple as that.
Yeah. You know, if you feel someone else is more qualified, you can say. But then but if they say no, you do it, then you just do it. You know, because also there may be other things that they need to do. It's not that everybody's just sitting around there waiting for you to offer the peanuts. And then, are you done yet? Are you done yet? You know, like that. You know, so if that's the case, then you can maybe say, well, then you do it. You know, but if everybody's busy doing different things, then why not you do what you do? You know? That makes sense. Yeah, because he's probably saying here, he's mentioned qualities. Otherwise, he's not even a human being. Right? So that means, that's why we say the human form of life, and then there's a human being. So we have 7 billion human forms of life on the planet. Now, how many are human beings, that's another thing. Right? So as they develop qualities, as they develop the interest in spiritual realization, that then qualifies them as human. Right? So that means every human form of life has the potential to be human. Right? But it doesn't mean they become. Does that make sense? Yeah, it depends on their endeavor. Just like, let's say, the parents are, let's say, doctors. So there's the potential for the child to become a doctor is very great. Because there'll always be that discussion, that attitude, the way of doing things, the way of studying, the way of managing your time, and all that. But it's up to the individual to actually do it. So the potential is there as soon as one's born into the human form to be human, but we still have to make the endeavor. But it's not about these 30 qualities separate from devotional service. It's about them in connection to devotional service. Yes?
In Vedic society, are the different varnas considered as different human races?
That's another thing, but they're all human. They're different species. That's why you don't mix the species. Does that make sense? But it's subtle. That makes sense? And then you have bigger within that, you know, how you say, geographic areas and mentalities of the people and all that. Because the idea is that the living entity wants to taste a particular combination of the modes of nature. And so then they somehow or another end up in a particular area, either by born there, circumstances, or something, in which that particular taste can be gained. Right? So therefore, those people like that, but somewhere else they don't. So it's a different nature. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we worry about the devotional qualification and that there's an equalness in nature, because otherwise there won't be compatibility. Right? If you have a bunch of people doing service and all that, it doesn't matter. You only worry about this aspect of species if there's marriage. Because then they have to work together in a particular way, and the children are produced, then they'll have a particular nature. But otherwise, as far as doing service and associating, it doesn't matter. Does that make sense? So you have to find that there's the compatibility because there's equal nature. Right? So even if you have a different group, it has to be the same group within that group. You know what I'm saying? You have one, let's say, place on the planet, you know, and you have a Brahminical nature there, and another place on the planet there's a Brahminical nature. You could match those. But there will be a difference in how they find things and how they like to do things. How they keep their stuff, how they live, and like that. So those have to be seen. That's why it's recommended. Generally, you stick within your same, how do you say? Same community, same nature. Because then there'll be more of an understanding how to do things. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like that. So it's just like here, in Finland. Husband likes the sauna, wife likes the sauna. Everything's great. Right? One of them loves the sauna, one of them hates it. Now that's a problem. You know, one of them, wow, I need to relax, so let's go to the sauna. So no, let's relax, let's go down to the beach. Where's the sauna at the beach? You know, so he says, you know what I'm saying? So that's why the nature is that you have to see that it's going to be compatible. Does that make sense? So it doesn't matter where they're from as long as that compatibility is there. But it's generally easier to find the compatibility if you use the local community. Does that make sense? So that point is, that's the point to start from. Okay. But you have to see that it's completed. So even within that, you have to see that there's a compatibility. Make sense? Yes.
How does the purification of, I mean, material purification goes then, like, is it that second generation or third generation can be, then, like, even the body can be Brahmana body or Kshatriya body?
If there's Garbhodhan, then you get that. But if you don't have Garbhodhan, then you don't get that. Then you get Shudra. But then, by devotional service, one can improve the situation.
So if Garbhodhan, does it still take some generations in order?
It will naturally, you'll see improvement in it.
Yeah.
But the point is a nature is there as when it's connected nicely to Krishna. You connect it nicely to Krishna, and that essential point is it mentioned. Brahmins means that they study and teach the Shastra, right? They worship the deity, do worship for others. That's what the Brahmins do. Kshatriyas, they protect, take taxes. Vaishyas, they generate economic development, they give in charity, right? And then Shudras, and serve the Brahmins and Kshatriyas. The Shudras serve all the other three. So that's the inherent nature. So that's what has to be seen. Because that's what makes them what they are. Because that's the conditioning. In other words, the particular mind, intelligence, ego, senses that you have, that's from your conditioning. And it is what it is. There is the aspect of it being in a pure state or an impure state. Right? Because if something's in an impure state, then it all acts like Shudra. Right? Like if you have a Dvija Bandhu, that means they have the potential of a Dvija, but they're not acting like that. So therefore they're acting like a Shudra. So they won't see any difference between them and another Shudra. But if they become purified, then they would naturally act as a Dvija in their natural capacity. Does that make sense? You know, it's just like, let's say, you go out into their garage, or look in the closet, or in a drawer. And when you open the drawer, it's full of junk. Right? But now you get out something from there and, you know, clean it up a little bit and make a little adjustment in it, then it's in good form. But as it is, it's just junk. It just associates with the junk, and it's not taken care of. It's not acting according to its natural position. You understand? So the point is that whatever one's nature, by devotional service, it will become purified, and so it will stand out very nicely. Does that make sense? Yeah. So then it works well.
Yes, Maharaj. So mentality, it would be more transaction. If somebody would be more Brahminical, he would basically surrender and see whatever comes. And if he would be Sudra, he would be how that applies in the temple.
The point is no. It means the Brahminical would mean it would work more on your discussing and preaching devotional service, so everyone would be inspired. They would work at their best according to their nature. Things would run okay, would run nicely, because people who can do all the different activities are doing them, but you don't have to organize them as much. So, in other words, the effort put into the preaching and devotional service is what's going to make it run. So as a Kshatriya nature, they will put into place systems that make it run nicely.
What kind of systems?
Schedules or whatever it is like that. You know what I'm saying? You know, you have it on the board, you this and that. But the other one, the Brahmin may not have it on the board, but everyone knows because they're responsible and get it done. So in other words, there'll be more organization. We're talking very generic here. Okay? Vaishya will mean that generally it will be, you'll get money, it'll be nice, the facilities will be very nice. So to be able to create that aspect of it, you know, it'll be comfortable facilities. You know what I'm saying? That would be just the generic. Okay? But Brahmin means they can learn anything, teach anything. So if they understand the principles of it, you may have a Brahmin who their specialty is management or administration. So then they may have it very nice and organized, but you'll see along with it, there's a very strong aspect on the Krishna, you know, the preaching to the devotees. You know what I'm saying? Or you may have it Kshatriya, where it's much more kind of sattvic aspect, and so then they also put an emphasis on that. And so the administration is secondary, but they do that very nicely. So it's going to be very individual, you know. So it makes sense. Vaishya would be very devotional in that, so they have very nice deity worship and this and that. Like I know one person who was temple president, more of a Vaishya kind of mentality, and they were huge collectors as a temple. They do huge money. And he would put, you know, because of mentality, because, you know, Vaishya mentality and the other collectors generally had that kind of mentality. Then he would put, they would get incentives for collection. Like they collected a certain amount, they could have a car, you know, to drive around. If not, they'd drop below a certain amount and they'd have to take the bus. So therefore they'd work harder because they'd rather have the car. But let's say if they were having a marathon or something special, whoever won the marathon would get a certain amount of facility. But now they could either get, let's say, a certain amount of facility for themselves. You know, like let's say they would get, you know, let's say 100 euros or something, you know, that they could go and do whatever they want with, you know, or 500 euros, they go buy a watch or something like that. Or he would make it, or it would be 2,000 euros for the deities. Understand? So they had very excellent deity worship, because most would rather, you know, put the money in for the deities. Like that. So they had one of the best, you've seen all, you know, kind of these carved asana, the Sringasans, and all over the world, you have these really nice carved ones. So this temple started that. They had the original carved like this, and, you know, everything. It was one of the most opulent worships. Like that. Like that. But, I just said, but so some see the deities and that as part of it, some don't, just have a nice place. Like that. So it'll be different according to the individual. Because the point is that within each of these you have individuals. And they're all devotees, so they're going to take the nature and make that connected to Krishna. Right? Does that make sense? So in other words, he may create, like I know one you know, devotee, Vaishya, you know, how you say, ability, then he would create very comfortable situations in which other business persons would like to come and be in that situation and perform devotional service. So he would make devotional service attractive because it was comfortable how they were used to it. Not that they were into that, because they would see it's devotional, but They would be very comfortable by the environment. You understand? While the other would be more by the preaching or the philosophy, the other would be by the structure and the rules that you're supposed to do devotional service. Here it's no, we make it nice for you, come do devotional service. You understand? So it depends on the individual how they make it. So it doesn't really matter. Right? But the principles of management, principles of knowledge, they all run on their own standards. So they have to function within that. But the overall flavor, it really doesn't matter. Yeah? Then, among such qualified persons, the Varnasrama process should be introduced, right? So, by doing devotional service, you develop the character. So, it has to be that one's performing devotional service with a focus on pure devotional service. Naturally, these qualities will develop. Then, with those qualities developed, then you should introduce Varnasrama. Right? Because otherwise, if they're not qualified, it's just like devotees will sometimes say that, oh, we tried Varnasrama. But that means that they were qualified on the material platform. Spiritually they were, but they hadn't developed the necessary secondary qualities to be able to appreciate and apply it. Does that make sense? Just like, let's say, if I say, parents are they're the authority for their children, right? Is anybody really going to have a problem with that? Right? No, okay. So how does a parent deal with the children? Authoritatively or kindly? Kindly. But, if they get out of line, then there's authority. Does that make sense? Yeah? It's simple. Everybody understands it. Okay? Why? Because one has seen it. Everybody knows the parents are in charge, and everybody appreciates when the parents are very nice and affectionate and everything like that. We'll say, that's a good parent. Right? They're affectionate to the children and things like that, and the children are responding by behaving properly. Right? No? You see where this is going? No?
Just listening.
Oh, okay.
Enjoying.
Okay. Does that make sense? Because you've seen it. But the point is the parent is technically the absolute authority. They decide where they live, where they go, what they're going to eat, what they're going to wear, what school they go to, which city, which country. The parent decides we're packing up and going to the next country. That's just the way it works. So technically that's absolute authority. But in application, it is because we've seen it, so therefore it works. Okay? Now you take people who haven't seen it, and they come across the Vedic principle, okay, the husband is the authority and the wife is following. But how do they apply it? With that same kindness and affection, like you would with the family, or it's a managerial thing. Okay? And so then when it's applied as a managerial thing, who's going to like that? Because that's not reality. And so then if people rebel against that, you can't say that was Varnasrama. Right? Just like the parent doesn't deal nicely, doesn't deal pleasantly, doesn't consider the child is just, I'm in charge, and that's it. And are you going to say that was a parent? They actually applied parenting? You understand? So that's the whole point. When the qualification is there, then when you introduce Varnasrama, it works. Basic principles you put into place, but unless you talk about it, how do you know where you're going? How do you know what to do? Because the point is, I have to develop these qualities. How am I going to develop them? I'm going to develop them through practice. How am I going to practice that? By using the Varnasrama activities. Does that make sense? Right? So that works. Right? So what do we have in our society? Okay, we just take the modern society. Okay? Do we have students that are not married?
Yes.
Right? And is it better that they do their study and not be out partying all day and night? Okay, most people will agree that that's more proper. Okay, do we have married people?
Yes.
Okay, do we have the concept that there's monks?
Yes.
Okay? And so that's where the concept of Varnasrama is. Right? We have brahmacharis, we have grihastas, we have sannyasis. Vanaprasthas, basically no one can figure out. Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, we don't deal with that. That's not there in our modern society. We don't identify it, so we can't relate to it. So that means 3 out of 8 we can relate to because we've seen it. And the other 5 we can't. And therefore it's not important, it's Kali Yuga, it's this and that. All it is no, I've never seen it, I don't understand it. That's the translation to, it's Kali Yuga, it doesn't work. That's the real translation. Does this make sense? But if someone's come from a background where there are these kind of things, they don't have a problem with it. They really don't. So that's the whole point, is that as qualities develop, then you introduce, but you're introducing as it develops. So it's not that you just all at once, it's little by little. What can be introduced is what's there, but it's always considered when you're applying it. Like the person walks in the door of the temple, they don't understand Varnashram, but you engage them according to their nature of Varnashram. So that means leadership understands it. And then you engage them. Does that make sense? And then with time, because they're doing devotional service through that, then it'll become obvious to them how it works. So that's what probably makes the point about, the managers in this guy should know Varnashram. Because now what are we having? A discussion for Yudhishthira Maharaj, who's an administrator. So that's what this topic is about. And Prabhupada's mentioned about Manu here. Again, he mentions it in the Gita, he mentions it in other cantos, and here again he's mentioned it. Yes?
Could you explain what then is proper meaning of the phrase that something doesn't work in this or that particular time? For instance, it doesn't work in Kali Yuga, or what it implies?
What it implies means I don't have to follow any rules that the Shastra says. I just do whatever I would naturally do from my background and my upbringing.
I understand that, but my question is, does anything? Can we apply this statement to anything? So, because
what's different in Kali Yuga is this: like, does governance work in Kali Yuga? Does economics work in Kali Yuga? Does family unit work in Kali Yuga? Does marriage work in Kali Yuga? Because if we go by that, what's the divorce rate here in this country?
60%.
60%. So that's pretty much, that's above half. And there's a good chance that it's 60% because you're spreading it out over the whole country. Probably if you go up north into Lapland and out towards the west, the divorce rate is way lower. And here in the city, it's way higher. It could be 80% in the city, but you balance it out in the country, then it's 20%. You know what I'm saying? So technically, you could say marriage doesn't work. Businesses are failing. Everything's failing. Right? My car doesn't work. So then let's get rid of it. So what are you going to be left with? So the whole point is yes, it is Kali Yuga. Deal with it. Be human. Deal with it. That's the whole point. It is Kali Yuga. There is problems. But there's problems in everything, not just in the rules given by Shastra. There's in everything. Even you order out for pizza, you can't guarantee that when you get it, it's not going to be cold, or it's the one you wanted, or they put enough cheese on it, or they bake the crust enough, or, you can't guarantee anything. But the point is unless there's endeavor, there's no results.
I understand that. What is then the proper understanding when Shastra says that something is not applicable in this or that, which is translated, it doesn't work? So
no, it means it's. So you have. Are you talking about in this age you don't do these big animal sacrifices, or Because there's only 5 things that are said in Kali Yuga from Manu that don't apply. Right? But they're not recommended necessarily anyway. Right? Does that make sense? Like Ni-Yoga. It's a process that's allowed in the other 3 ages, but in Kali Yuga it's not. You know, the Gandharva marriages and like that are in this, they're not recommended. Because people don't have the commitment. Like, let's say you take Subhadra. Right? Krishna wants to marry you to Arjuna. Balaram wants to marry you to Duryodhana. But in her mind, whoever she marries, she's going to be a good wife. So therefore, whatever marriage system you use, it'll work. You know? It's not a problem. But in this age, it has to be the formal Brahma rite where you go and everything's arranged and you have the formal ceremony and everything like that, because then people will think, oh, we're married. Or others will go, oh, they're married. Right? Because otherwise, if it's just an agreement, people are just living together, then someone else might think, hey, I got a shot here. You know, or they're living there, and I don't have to do this. Right? But if there's the formalized, then you say, okay, we're married. But in the other ages, if any of the 8 are used, you're married. So therefore, that's why the restrictions are there, like that. But in general, Kali Yuga just means things don't work so good. Like that. So, but the principle of it always works. Just like, let's say Vedic tradition, they use monarchy, but the point is that the people are protected. So whether you use monarchy, use democracy, use oligarchy, whatever system you use, it doesn't matter as long as the people are protected. Right? If the leadership is God conscious, protects the people, encourages them in God consciousness, then it works. The principle has been attained. So that's why the detail is there to support the principle. So that's what has to be obtained. The principle is what has to be attained. So that can always be obtained in any age. Now, the detail of how you apply it, in other words, the symptoms of the secondary may be very nice or not. That may adjust like that. Does that make sense?
Got it.
Yeah. In the Varnasrama system, the first ceremony for purification is Garbhodhan, right? So now we're going to be mentioning the samskars, because we mentioned the samskars create impressions. So everything we're doing in life creates impressions. You do nice things, it creates a good impression. You do bad things, it creates a bad impression. So now for children, they don't necessarily know what to do and not to do, right? So since the Vedic system is about proper action, all right? I'm going to do proper action. Why should I do proper action? As the Shastra said. You know, why follow the Shastra? Because it's coming from Krishna. So in other words, by doing proper action, I please Krishna. But it's not that I did the proper action that pleases Krishna. It's that I did the proper action to please Krishna that pleases Krishna. Right? If I just do the proper action not to please Krishna, then I'm pious. But if I do the proper action to please Krishna, then that's called devotional. Right? So the point is in any case, human beings follow proper action. So that's defined by the scriptures. So since the child doesn't know what's proper and not proper, therefore samskars are established for them so that they get the impressions that will later on in life be useful to them. Right? Now, it's like the adult properly uses their intelligence. Child doesn't know how to do that. Therefore, Meda Yagya, the Jatikar, the birth ceremony, is developing that intelligence. Right? Proper consciousness. What's that? The adults then can say, okay, I should have this consciousness, but the child doesn't know that. Therefore, Garbhodhan, to establish proper consciousness. Does that make sense? The adult makes the choices on how to be healthy and live the lifestyle. For the child, then the Paushti Karma, Anaprasana, these things, they establish that. Does it make sense? Right? Which is performed with mantras at the time of sex for propagating a good child. One who uses sex life not for sensual pleasures, but only to beget children according to the reformatory method, is also accepted as a brahmachari. Right? So, then one's a grihastha brahmachari. If one doesn't use it like that, then one's a grihastha, but not a grihastha brahmachari. Does that make sense? Yes, no. So in other words, the point is this is the highest standard, that the husband and wife only are interactive in a sexual way for propagating children, right? And they're married, right? So, right? Like that. But the point is the other end of it is, don't do these kind of things with anybody else other than your married spouse. Does that make sense? So one end you have, don't get into sexual interaction with anyone other than who you're married to, and the other end is only do this for begetting children. Right? So that's your range. Right? Don't go below the bottom one, try for the top one. Does that make sense? Yes.
But isn't the bottom one considered like the 3.5 regulative principles?
Point is it's still considered proper. You know what I'm saying? There's standards within. It's just like this. Go out on Sankirtan, buy yourself a jar of peanuts and a block of cream cheese. Is that food?
Yeah.
Okay. But at the same time as the standard that you would offer the deity, would you be offering that to the deity? Lunchtime, there's a bowl of peanuts and there's a chunk of cream cheese. Right? Now, and of course, it's for the deities, so you actually did open the end of the cream cheese and fold it down halfway and then stick it there so the deities could pick it up nicely and chew on it. And you did take the top off the bottle of the peanuts, yes. You understand? So you have, that's called that they're, it's not illicit sex because it's between husband and wife. Right? But it's not the ideal standard, because the point is it's not about sense gratification, because the point is sense gratification means where's Krishna involved in it. So that's the point, is you have to see Krishna. Then it becomes personal. Otherwise it's just your senses, their senses, and what does it do? Because it's not to do with the soul, it's not to do with Krishna. It's just to do with the soul's interest in enjoying the senses in that way. Does that make sense? So that's why it's not ideal. Right? And it distracts because of the intensity of the sense gratification, and the mind goes there instead of going to other things that it could be going to. That's why, that's the weakness of it. Do you understand? So it's not, because the point is it's, the standard is there, it's not ideal, but at the same time as you're talking about dead matter. I'm not sure, but I kind of remember that there's a verse or something. If you take a piece of wood and rub it on the wall, you understand? It's dead matter and dead matter. It's that much significance. So that grihastas are engaged in all kinds of sensual, insanity. The point is that what's the big deal? It's dead matter. That's not the problem. The problem is the living entities identify with it. That's the problem. It's not, oh, they did this, oh, they did that. It's kind of like, who cares? It's dead matter. The problem is because the living entities identify with it. And the problem is we're identifying them with it also. Does that make sense? So in other words, grihastha life is a situation in which the couple then cooperates together to the common ground of desires, then they're able to fulfill. Because the point is if you have neutral, then that's all you require. But if you have masculine, you have to have feminine. You understand? So that's the point. Brahmachari means neutral. Right? But if one cultivates the point of masculine, then there must be feminine to match it. Because the masculine requires the feminine to work it all out. Right? Because there's a difference in the nature. And so they balance each other. even in the contemporary environments, where you have all kinds of strange and wonderful relationships. But the point is you'll still have masculine and feminine within the relationship, whatever it is. Whichever the 56 Facebook options for what your gender is, it will still function in that way. You understand? So, brahmachari means neutral. Right? Because the point is you're trying to get to that. That's the basis of the whole system, because you're trying to get to devotional service where it's all about Krishna. So you're neutral to material. You can engage material in Krishna service or not engage it. Right? Means someone's in the situation, they engage grihastha life in Krishna service. Or they're in a situation, they're brahmachari, they don't engage it. It doesn't matter to them. It's whichever situation is best for whatever situation they're in. Does that make sense? Yeah. So then that's how it works. So we're trying to get to that neutral state where it doesn't matter. It's about its connection to Krishna. That's what's important. Not the secondary. We put too much on the secondary, like the discussion before on the vegan. That's all. That's total secondary. I mean, just like intensely secondary. To the point where they're demanding that the primary can only function because of their secondary. It's like total misunderstanding of the philosophy and how things work. They just don't understand the universal laws and how they function. Cows are a principle, not a political item. Because along with the cows, if they're a true vegan, then they'd be worried about the cows, about the children, about the women, about the old people, and about the Brahmins. And if they're only worried about the cows, still not human. Better than, a better subhuman. At least they consider cows, but they're not totally human yet. Human means all five. You don't have all five, you're not human. To that degree, those five are there. To that degree, you're human. You know what I'm saying? So they'll sit there and razz the how you say, the Brahmins up and down over the cows. So they don't mind chucking out the Brahmins for the cows. You know what I'm saying? Kids for the teachers for the kids. You know what I'm saying? The women are, it's like this. It just, each one, it's like, it's one of those five against everybody else. No, it's supposed to be, they're a package. That's human. But if you've taken one, good. That's a step up. But it's still not human yet. But that's the problem, because you only have one, it's not balanced, and then therefore you try to put it in a stronger position than it needs to be. Right? Because each one is 1/5 of it. But you're trying to make your one thing 100%. That's why it's hard to have a conversation with anybody who takes any one of these five. And these are the better ones. Then there's people who take outside these five and make them the issue. That's really a problem. Does that make sense? Yes.
Okay, do I understand it correctly that the bottom line you mentioned in the Grihastha life is bottom line because it's on the level of dharma, which is the lowest for God consciousness?
It's on the level of dharma in that it's husband and wife.
Yeah.
But what's the nature of the man? What's the nature of the woman? Because then you go into that, and so then are they interacting based on that?
Meaning there is a commitment at least.
Yes, there's a commitment and all that. So it has that element of dharma, yes. But it's dharma with a strong, how you say, mix of karma, like that. So that's the thing. And how successful they'll be at that depends upon how much of the dharma they understand. They understand what's the masculine principle, what's the feminine principle. Then they can make that kind of work. And if they're working on the dharma, then they'll start to slowly see that there's something higher. Then it's progressive. So that's why the Vedic system has Kama Shastra, so that one can see what's the progress. Otherwise, if one doesn't, then it just gets tiring, that's all. But it doesn't mean that it goes away. So that the opportunity pops up somewhere else, it may. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah, so that's yes.
This
elaborate more on masculine and feminine principles?
But in what capacity? That's like, let's say, Shankya Yoga is the delineation of masculine and feminine principle. That takes up basically a canto. So which part of it are you interested in here?
Just related to this previous point about brahmachari being neutral.
Because does the brahmachari need a woman to perform his duties? He washes his own clothes, he gets his own food, he goes out and buys his own can of peanuts. Like that. Like that. Does that make sense? So he's independent. He doesn't require. But it's very, very simple. Now if he wants more elaborate, more facility, more those kind of things, then one needs a woman to be involved. Does that make sense? Because he wants these facilities, and a woman wants to increase her facilities, so it works nicely. Right? In other words, he works like an ass with a carrot in front of him, and she sits there with a stick on it, like that. Yeah, so it works. It's a good combination. And everybody's happy, right? You know, it works. Yeah. Okay. Okay. One should not waste semen on sensual pleasure, violating the principles of Vedic life. Restraint in sex is possible, however, only when the populace is trained in the above-mentioned 30 qualities. Otherwise, it is not possible. So one doesn't start with that. One starts with no illicit sex means no sex outside of marriage. Because that's what we say. Do we say more than that? The vow is illicit sex means no sex outside of marriage. Right? No. We're not saying this other end here. That's what we're trying to get to. We know that that's what it is. But as we develop in Krishna consciousness, that's possible. Right? That doesn't mean it's okay. It means that that's where you start from. Right? Just like the kid gets on the bicycle the first time. What happens? They fall over, they bump into something. So is that okay? It's okay as a start, but that's not riding a bicycle. Does that make sense? So therefore, illicit sex, meaning not sex outside of marriage, we start from there. And then it develops from there as the couple develop in their Krishna consciousness and the qualities and things like that. So it's not, oh, it's okay. No, it's not okay. But it's standard. It's where we start from. Does that make sense? So you have to have a balance. It's not wrong, but it's not the ideal. Right? Because you can't say, no, it's right. No, it's not right, but it's not wrong. We're not saying it's right, we're saying it's not wrong. And then there's ideal. Does that make sense? And so, therefore, one has time to figure that out. Yes? No?
Yes.
Works? Okay. Slightly different definition than one generally hears, but because one either hears one end or the other, and not that. No, they're both there, and they both have their position, but you have to understand what's primary and what's secondary. Yes.
Somehow, like from the beginning of when I started coming here, I understood that no illicit sex means no illicit sex outside of marriage, not for procreation. That's
Yes.
the standard.
Yes, but when you say the four regular principles, what do you say? No meat, fish, eggs, onion, garlic. No intoxication, no illicit sex. It means no sex outside of marriage, no gambling.
Yeah, I understood it.
And then that's what you understand. But I'm saying, what are you saying? So there's the two things. There's what you say and what do you understand.
Yeah, I understood the definition.
Yeah, so the point is it's just like, okay, let's say the person goes out, the first day you hand them a book, stick them out on the street down there, you know, somewhere in the city, and the whole day they don't distribute one book. Okay? But would you say they were out on book distribution?
Yeah.
Okay, but would you call that book distribution? So that's the point. You understand? In other words, they standing out there all day trying, no books go out. That's they're starting. So that's the Vedic thing, is that since everything is by action, the Vedic system is if you're not applying it, it's not complete. So you have to have the knowledge, but it must be complete. And that means it has to be applied, because the application gives results. So if someone is performing the process that gets the result, they're considered rightly situated. Right? Does that make sense? In other words, you have, it's technically called Purushartha, means what is the result you're trying to get, that ultimate result. Right? And you have Kritvarta, which means the activity that I perform that gets the temporary results that go to the ultimate result. Just like, let's say, I want to go out on Sankirtan, okay? So I want to be on Sankirtan, and the next moment, there you are, right in the middle of the square, tons of people, you got all your books, everything, right? It happens like that? Or is there a little, you have to actually, go out there, chase everybody around the temple, get them into the van, make sure the books are in the van, make sure everything's there, there's petrol in the thing, that you got the keys, someone's got a license, there's air in the tires, that you drive out in the proper way and don't, run over any old ladies, and stuff like that. And you get down, you have to park in the right place and make sure that the van's still there when you get back, and all these kind of things, and arrange, everybody's got something to eat and all this, so, right? So you have all these little goals. Those are the Kritvarta. Right? But the Purushartha is the book distribution. You understand? So you have to make sure all those little things are happening so that the ultimate is there. Right? Now, if you are starting those or in any way connected with that, the Kritvarta, you're considered rightly situated. Even if you don't have the result. Right? Does that make sense? Let's say you go out, you get the books, you load them in the van and this and that, and then you go to start the van, and the transmission falls out or something like that. Okay, and you couldn't go out. Now will people not say, oh, you're not a book distributor? No, because you're rightly situated. You made the endeavor. So now what's the next endeavor? Trying to get the van fixed. So that takes you 3 days, but you're not out on book distribution. But you're rightly situated. Because you're doing those activities, Kritvarta, that gets the Purushartha. That makes sense? So the Purushartha, that's the primary. The Kritvarta, the secondary. So if someone understands the standard and then is making that endeavor, whatever is their results, they're rightly situated. So you have to have knowledge to be rightly situated. So you have to know that that's what it means, but at the same time, it takes time. For some it may be very quick, some it may be much slower. You know what I'm saying? But the point is yeah. That makes sense? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay. So we understand more clearly the Purushartha and Kritvarta. Always have to find the right examples. Okay? So that's the point, is if it's not applied, it doesn't have meaning. So that's why then in application, you have to know what the rule is, you have to know what the field is, and how you fit into that. You have to know your qualification, and you have to know the application. Right? So there's the central rule, there's the rule of application, the rule of qualification, and the rule of process. Because I know that this does this, that does that, this, all these things. So that's the Sankarshan aspect. I know how everything connects together. I know what my ultimate goal is I'm trying to get. I know my qualification in that. Then, seeing all that, then I make, okay, first we do this, then this, then this, then this, then this. Right? If we get all the devotees into the van, that books in the van, people in the van, that works. Right? And they're in the van, not the van is on top of them or something. Or we put out all the books, drive the van on top of that, or put the books, lay all the devotees, then put the van, you know. You know what I'm saying? Or put the books inside the people on the top, or the people inside the books. You know, you understand how everything protecting the people, that's his approach. Then Kritvark would be how he administrates and all the different things like that. Takes taxes and his army and like his bureaucracy. Right? But the Varnasrama system is Kritvarta for the pure devotional service. Does that make sense? So that's how you have to understand the principle of how it works and then how to apply it so it goes. Because otherwise, the Vedic always seems confusing because it appears that there's overlapping definitions when there's not. There's just one definition that applies universally. That's the amazing thing, because in the moderns you have one thing for this, one thing for that. So no, but there's only one formula, and it applies in everything. So, makes some sense. How do we do it now? 5 past which? 2. Oh, so it's, oh no, so we 2:30, right? Yes. Okay. Okay. Even if one is born in a family of Dvijas or twice born, if they have not followed the reformatory process, he is called a Dvija Bandhu, not the twice born. So that'll be very difficult to follow. So that's why we find so many of these things are difficult because of not developing these qualities. But we only develop these qualities by devotional service. So what does that mean? Where should our focus be? Pure devotional service. If the focus is on performing pure devotional service, the qualifications that are there, the adhikar, to be able to apply all the various rules and regulations in their natural form will come. But if we try to approach these things separately, it won't work. It doesn't work. Just like we've been doing management seminars since the mid-90s, right? You know, the win-win and all that kind of jazz, right? You know, and has it affected that there's great management? No, because first are the qualities, and the qualities come from pure devotion. So unless the focus is on pure devotion, one won't develop the qualities, therefore one won't be able to apply the skills. One won't have the knowledge, one won't have the skills. So, does that make sense? So that's why the focus is there, and then you cultivate these others at the same time. Just like someone's cooking, and he's very expert at cooking. We get out the cookbook, look at all the thing, but then forget about Krishna. Then what's the point? No, you have to remember Krishna. Then, as good as you can do, you do. And then next time it'll be better. That's the practice. So the practice is in 2. 1, always remembering Krishna, not forgetting. And 2 is the natural skills. So the point is the organization, the facilities that one has now in comparison in the past is very great. But at the same time, as if the devotion doesn't go up along with it, then it's a waste of time. So that's the thing, is that, but that doesn't mean that one throws it all out. No, one just adds Krishna. Right? So in other words, what's the point of cultivating zeros if there's no 1? Right? You have the 1, then there's some meaning. Then you put a 0, you got 10. Put 2 zeros, have 100. But otherwise, if I have 10 zeros, I still have nothing. You know? And the fun part is there's a good chance we can't even cultivate zeros. Right? Like that. What's our qualification? Does that make sense? One has to remember when there's in the professional world, when there is a self-help seminar, who's losing money, and why do people go to the self-help seminar? to make money. So in that self-help seminar, who's making the money? And who's losing the money? Right? So the point is the self-help seminar is business for the person running the seminar. But for the person going to the seminar, he's simply someone that you make money off of. Just like in business. I have cloth, I sell it, somebody buys it, I make the profit. So that's all. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? The person comes to my shop, buys cloth. Now they become a cloth merchant? No, I'm the cloth merchant. Right? So they come to the self-help seminar, he makes the money, you spent the money. And they're happy. They walk away with some pieces of paper, right? You walk away with pieces of paper with faces on them, like that. Everybody's happy. Hey? You understand? So now that's 95, 2005, 2015. That's 20 years. You understand? So what's missing here? Pure devotional service. From that, developing the character, from that, being able to see the things. So you have to know this. Trying to learn the skills separately than devotional service won't work. Does that make sense? Why won't it work? Because even if I know the skills, if I don't have the right attitude, how will it work? You understand? Let us say, let us take two people who are working in the economic field. I don't know if the example will work here, but do you have something here where people who like sell secondhand cars are not looked upon as really high level socially? Do you have that kind of thing?
Yes.
You know, that means, in other words, they'll do anything to get you to buy the car, even if it's going to fall apart on you. You know, but probably you'll get to your house, then it'll fall apart. Okay? It's kind of that kind of thing. You know, they're kind of like, you know, or loan sharks, or, you know, all these kind of, there's an aspect of the community that's considered untrustworthy. You understand? Now, do they understand the mechanics of economics? Yes, because they're making money. But do they have the character? What's their intent? That's the weakness. Now you go into someone who you consider a respectable businessman. What's the difference? It's simply in the character. You know what I'm saying? We're talking, you know, cliches here. But just to give the example, to give the point. So if anybody is a secondhand car salesman or family members are, please don't take it the wrong way. Does this make sense? Right? So the whole point is it's character, it's the intent. That's why prajumna is important. It means you see everything, but then there's your qualification. What's your attitude? How do you fit into it? If that's not understood, it won't work. Therefore, you know, devotees can talk all they want about all these professional, you know, managerial skills, but if you don't have the character to back it up, it's not nice. It just, all it is manipulation. And manipulation is generally seen as exploitation. You add the person to manipulation, you say then it's nice feelings. It's culture. You leave the person out of it, it's just manipulation. You understand? So developing the skills separately from developing the character won't work. And developing the character won't work without devotional service. So in other words, if you have devotional service, you have the character, you can develop the skill. So that's what I mean. If you have devotional service, you have everything. So you get the spiritual, you get the subtle, which is the mind, intelligence, and ego, which is the character, and you get the physical skill. They go together. Yes?
Just, you mentioned about the different kind of businessmen, you have the moral one, and then the second-hand cars salesman. But is it so that business always involves some kind of cheating?
That's another thing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, we're giving the example of that to people who understand the economic field. But one, you appreciate the dealings, one you don't. Even though the mechanics are the same, what's the difference is the character. That's what we're saying is that, Prabhupada's saying here is that someone who has these 30 qualities, they can appreciate Varnasrama and follow it. And being able to follow it is only when you have those qualities. So how do you get that? From devotional service, because that's what Narad Muni is describing. So in other words, Narad Muni is describing Saddharma, or devotional service, in a structured form known as Varnasrama. Right? So Saddharma means the eternal activity of the soul serving God. How are you going to do that? You're going to use body, mind, and words in the Lord's service. What's your body made out of? Material energy. What's your mind made out of? Material energy. What's your words made out of? Material energy. So we, as souls in the material world, don't have anything else to work with but material energy. So how do we structure that? Therefore, Varnasrama. This whole idea is, oh, we're devoted, we're independent, we're free. It's like, great, you are, but what about your body? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's why mature persons know that you have to use both together. Immature will take one. It's all devotional, so we don't care about all that. Oh, it's all about the rules and all that. Until that's in place, we can't do devotional service. Some will say, unless we develop care, we can't do devotional service. No, either of them are wrong. Devotional service can be performed anyway. That's the point. It's independent. Character is not independent. Skills are not independent. They're dependent. Devotional service you can do no matter what it is. You can be a rat bag and do devotional service. And then by doing it regularly, then one will develop character. Does that make sense? Yes.
Maharaj, I'm confused with the way you use this term character. Could you kindly elaborate on that? Because character or qualities, because these loan sharks, definitely they have certain qualities to do their business. So what is the definition of this term character?
Well, here what we're meaning character and qualities, we're meaning these. These are the general principles to be followed by all human beings. Truthfulness, mercy, austerity, bathing twice a day, tolerance, discrimination between right and wrong, control of the mind, control of the senses, nonviolence, celibacy, charity, reading of the scriptures, simplicity, satisfaction, rendering service to saintly persons, gradually taking leave of unnecessary engagements, observing the futility of the unnecessary activities of human society, remaining silent, grave, and avoiding unnecessary talk, considering whether one is the body of the soul, distributing food equally to all living entities, both men and animals, seeing every soul, especially in the human form, as part of the Supreme Lord, right? And then the 9 qualities of devotional service. These are what we mean. This is what we're meaning when we're saying here qualities. We're not that we would say, in that definition, the term we would use would be nature.
I see.
Then that would be businessman, like that. But qualities would be these, how much character he has. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and in particular, from the Vedic perspective, when character includes these qualities, not the qualities society just defines itself.
No.
That person, he has great qualities, great character, because of that he's Steve Jobs. So
Yes.
it's not okay.
No, because those will be part of these things,
Yeah.
like that. They'll be part of these things because let's say you have, let's say the person who's the chairman of the, what do you call those things? I can't even remember the name of it. Let's say you have this, like a group of businessmen, and they all get together.
Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce. The chairman of that is generally pretty quiet. Right? But now, like what he said, the second you have a car salesman, his whole thing is talking. So wherever he is, he's always talking. But these others, they'll know when to talk, when to not talk. Does that make sense? So like that. There's sounding great, avoiding unnecessary talk. So if the talk actually has a value in business and getting things done, they'll say something. If not, they'll just be quiet. Even if all the young guys are getting up and saying this and that and yelling and screaming and fighting, he won't say anything because he knows it's a waste of time. But, that's what they're there for, so hey, let's them. And then after everything's finished, then he'll stand up, say something, and everyone will go, oh, like that. Is that? Yeah. So the character is yes, yeah. whole purpose of the system is to create good population. Right? Because the point is if there's samskar, then the quality of the population is better, so therefore you have better material to work with. Right? Let us just say like this. I go to the jeweler and I hand him a chunk of gold. Okay? You have one of those little blocks of gold. I give that to the jeweler and say, can you make this for me? Okay? Now let's say I go to the same jeweler and I have a chunk, a rock that has some flecks of gold in it. It's a big rock, so it has the same amount of gold in it, and I hand that to him. Now, how is this going to work out? You understand? So that's the idea. The better the quality of the population, like that, then the easier it is to apply the Varnashram system. Because then people are there, then the qualities of the newer persons in the system, then they're able to see that association, be trained by them, understand, that they'll grow up and have that value. But if the quality is not very good, then you know, they don't respect authority, they're chivalrous, I mean, they fight amongst each other, they exploit those who are junior. How do you get anywhere with that? How do you train such a person? Does that make sense? So that's why then, that's the point why then one has children according to Garbhadam. Right? That's the whole. Yeah. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, when women are polluted, the populace is Varnashankar. But when the Varnashankar population increases, the situation in the entire world becomes hellish. Because the control of the whole thing is the women. Right? Women are the fire. Fire is what controls it. You control the fire. It's just like this. If I want butter to melt, then what do?
Well, you will put it next to the fire.
Yeah, you bring the fire and the butter next to each other. Right? I don't want the butter to melt. I keep the fire away from the butter. Like that. So that's the whole point. Butter's going to melt. It's just a matter of whether there's fire or not. You understand? So the women control the situation. Does that make sense? Right? It means in the tradition, I don't know if it works. You know, the older stories, you hear of the men wooing the women. Does that make sense? Do you have a word like that? Huh?
What's wooing?
Wooing means they make their effort to try to impress the girl. Come up, talk nicely, give her flowers, try to take her out to dinner, give her gifts. Right? So that's technically called wooing. Right? So nowadays, I guess you would want to wow. Kind of, okay. You understand? So, but do you see that the girls have to do that for the boys?
No.
No. There's a willing girl. The boys are all right there. You understand? So it's a different thing. So the women are in control. So does that make sense? So that's the whole point. If they're trained, then you get Varnashram. If they're not trained, you get Varnashankar. It's simple. But how do you have women that are trained? Is because you have men that are trained. Right? The men are trained, then the women can remain trained. It's a problem. Therefore, devotional service. Then it will all work. So that's why we see is that, we see where it's going here? Is that since managers have to know Varnashram to be able to engage everybody properly in devotional service according to their nature. And to be able to apply Varnashram, you have to have qualities and character. That comes from devotional service. So that means for a leader in Krishna consciousness, it all has to be about pure devotional service. It doesn't matter whether it's about scholarship, it's about administration, it's about money. It doesn't matter. It has to be the primary focus is pure devotional service. Otherwise, you don't have the other things. Right? As we mentioned, try to run management seminars for the last 20 years. It's not that we have this amazing increase in management. Right? Why? Because the focus was not on pure devotional service. We're devotees and then there's management. And if we manage better, then devotional service will go better. It'll fail. It has to be, no, it's about pure devotional service. And so then we do this. Because if you teach that, the other thing comes easily. Just like, let's say I have a businessman, right? And I hand him a book, one of these standard books, you know, Covey's book or Carnegie's book or that. And he reads through it because, you know, everybody's reading it. And he'll find some nice points in there, right? Something he hadn't looked at it in that angle. He's doing it from a different angle. And he'll go, oh, okay. And he'll just do it. That's it. It's done. They take someone who's not a businessman, show them that book, they can read the whole thing, memorize the whole thing, be able to say it frontwards and backwards, they still can't apply anything. Understand? So in other words, there has to be that qualification to be able to apply it. And that qualification comes from devotional service. So leadership means preaching devotional service. And that means pure devotional service. Right? And then, but to do that, you have to be able to preach it to the position where somebody's at it present. That means you have to be able to work with mixed devotional service. So as we mentioned before, it's there, is this whole thing where we're saying about the variation in illicit sex. That's because you have what's mixed and what's not. You understand? So but you can work with it. You understand what you're working with, where to move from there, and then it makes it work. That's leadership. Because then people progress in devotional service. And you've organized it. Either through teaching, through administration, through money, whatever is the situation you've done. You've made it happen. But it's pure devotional service, which is the primary. That's the Purushartha. And the Purushartha, Kritvartha, that's the management technique you used, whatever it is. Whatever leadership aspect you use. Does that make sense? So that's why it can't be prominent. It's the technique, but unless you understand the pure devotional aspect of it, you actually won't be able to apply it to advantage. You can maybe get something done, but then devotees won't be satisfied, or this or that, or so many things like that. Right? So, better if somebody doesn't like you're preaching a pure devotional service and would rather be independent, then they stick around because you don't preach pure devotional service, and they're not performing pure devotional service, and they don't like your management. Those guys will give you trouble. But if you preach pure devotion, then they'll either come up to that standard and have to work with it, or they'll go away. Does that make sense? So you don't want something in between. They're not interested in pure devotional service, and they won't go do their own thing. Right? Because if you want to be material, do your own thing. Right? Does that make sense? So that's how the whole thing works. So it's much less trouble. Then you don't have to have the management skills. Right? And you only have the management skills if you have the character. And so unless you're born with it, you're only going to get it from devotional service. Does that make sense? So that means anybody can become a leader by practicing pure devotional service. What kind of leader they'll be, whether it's Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, that's another thing. What medium they'll use to express pure devotion, that's a secondary aspect. But leadership means understanding devotional service, practicing devotional service, training others in devotional service. Prabhupada mentions, one is inspired and one inspires others. Right? And if it's sustainable, it's devotional. If it's not sustainable, it's not devotional. Come together at a meeting, yeah, everybody's inspired, then walk out of the meeting and everybody's not. That's not sustainable.
So everyone by nature has a certain set of qualities.
Right.
But character is defined by these qualities, and the character can be only developed.
Right.
These inborn qualities just you don't need endeavor; they just.
Yes.
But character should be
cultivate
developed.
those.
But character should be developed and cultivated,
Yes.
and based on devotional service.
Yes, yes, yes.
And everyone can achieve these.
And everyone can achieve these. That's why it says human. We're talking about Shudras here.
Yeah.
Shudras can have all this. All it is Shudras assist the other three. Vaishyas will make money, control the Shudras, and serve the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, then they'll see that the system works. Like that. So the whole thing is that's the secondary aspect. Like that. So where everyone's situated, that's the thing. It doesn't matter, because if you have leaders, you have to have followers. So it doesn't matter that you have one businessman, you have 10,000 people who work for him. But a lot gets done because of 10,000 people. But the 10,000 people wouldn't know what to do without that one. So they're interdependent. Right? The primary is expressed through the secondary, and the secondary has no meaning without the primary. So that's why you always have to focus on the primary. Then the secondary has meaning. But if you approach the secondary separate, without bringing that up and making the connections, no one will be able to use it. Because if they could use it, they'd already be using it. Right? What's Kavi's book? Right? Now it's the 8 habits, right? Because it's 7 figured out. Well, they couldn't make it work with 7 now. With this, he'll come out with 9 habits, because the principle is you have the character, you have the nature, you can use it. Right? So the point is, these 8 habits of people who are successful, they're successful without reading his book. They already have the nature. So that's the thing, is you can cultivate what's there. You can't cultivate what's not there. You can't take someone who has no managerial ability and make them into a manager. It won't happen. You can make them if they have an area of interest in the art of management, they can assist the manager. Right? You know, just like the guy with the MBA could help a businessman, but he couldn't run a business himself. Right? And he'll do good work. Like that. But he can read all the books he wants, he'll never become a businessman. He'll always be an MBA. He'll always be a middle manager. Does that sound sense? So that's the whole point, is don't worry about it, because it's our conditioning. It's not us. It's just what body, what mind, what intelligence we have. That's what we work with. You know, it's just like you go in the kitchen. What's in the kitchen? That's what you cook. You know, you don't have to be the potato to cook the potato. This is not like how you say, you know, Miss Universe or something. You know, be the crown. You are the crown. It's not one of those. Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai.